Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of Madness and Mayhem. And I have got a fun one for us all. Let me just put my phone on silent. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I have been playing with AI again, but actually to make my life easier and to give you guys, I'm sorry, good bugs, to give you guys an opportunity to kind of do your own little deep dives without needing to rely on my noggin, basically. So I thought we could do some like live testing of my AIs. And I mean, I've kind of done a bit of testing, but I've done some more tweaking in the background to kind of get things more aligned and more accurate. So just give me 2 seconds, because right up to the wire, I was... Why isn't it pasting? Oh, come on. Right up to the wire, I was having to kind of tell Grok off a little bit. So, oh, it's in. Hold on. There we go. Trump. Let's do Iran. So we're going to test it on 2 different situations. So basically, I've been training the AI to do the things that I normally do. Kind of, I say by hand, pretty much by hand. And then I've been using AI recently to synthesize all of my kind of cross-referencing and checks like that. But now we're going to be able to kind of run things really quickly and maybe stay ahead of the curve. The plan to stay ahead of the curve. So I thought we could just do lots of it live. Okay, so first up, so I've created 2 different AI profiles. So the first one is pretty finished. Maybe needs a little bit more tweaking. And once it's finished, I'll kind of like give it to you guys 100%. And the second one is probably about 40% there, so not quite accurate. We're not kind of 40% in the creation process. So it'll make more sense when I kind of explain exactly what I'm doing. So first one is created to psychologically profile public figures, right? Particularly world leaders, and including, so using biopsychosocial model, developmental psychology, which is kind of my background, using SCAN, so statement analysis, which is what the Israeli intelligence service used to detect deception. And then kind of lumping that all together, but cross-referencing between the things that they're saying and the things that they're doing. So it's kind of like a deception detector tool, and also gives us like confidence info, like how confident are we that in the deception like marker we've got. And so the marker is out of 100, so we're getting a percentage of deception. Now, we do have to remember that public figures very rarely write their own speeches. So when we rely on speeches, we are going to find less, it's going to be less raw. So whenever you use the tool, do bear in mind what you want to try and get hold of is raw, unfiltered information, like raw, unfiltered conversations. Data points that fall outside of mainstream media bias, whether it's left or right. So just so you know, it was trained on me. because obviously I can give a full developmental history. I can give and plug in all the data points that I would need if I was doing a psychological formulation on somebody, and we would then use that information to put a treatment pathway in place. And I've been using statement analysis for, I mean, I've never been trained officially, but been using it quite frequently, and then did kind of immerse myself in understanding how to use it. So I've been spotting when Grok's a bit naughty. So it was trained on me, like fully unfiltered with regards to my past, so that we could ensure that we were figuring out biases and congruency and stuff like that. So just to be happy to report, I mean, you can always plug me in as well, right? So I wouldn't use my blogs if you want to check for my deception, because I do have the AI help me edit it and structure it, because I waffle. So if you want to plug something in, then absolutely plug in my social media, which is me, and these types of shows where I'm just unfiltered and talking, and then maybe interviews I've done where people have asked me questions. So if you absolutely, you can plug me in, but based on, so I've got a 92% truth, if you like. So there's an 8% deception, 8% potential deception, but that's because nobody's like 100%. Maybe, and I've changed my mind. So if you look pre-2020, I thought Trump was a racist. I didn't believe in the cabal. I didn't I didn't believe in a type of God until 2020. So when you kind of cross-reference back, you do also have to bear in mind that people can change their opinion. But I think 92% is pretty good, right? So you can rest, once you've run me through it, you can absolutely rest assured that the information I give you is the truth that I believe. It may not obviously be the entire truth, right? So you always have to take everything with a pinch of salt. So that's the first one, and it's quite funny because I asked, Grok helped create the prompt, right? We kind of like tested it together, and Grok created the master prompt so that we can just throw it into a thread and then run it. And that the plan will be that you guys can just run it and test it on whoever, so it'd be really useful for influencers. Are they perhaps being paid by Israel or Qatar or the UK government or the USA government or China? Like, where's the money coming from? Or Russia? So that should help it. People are always like, well, who do we trust? Well, this is a tool that's going to help people figure out who do we trust. But bearing in mind, although it was trained on me and like a full psychological profile, it was a few hours of kind of plugging in all the information, right? So genuine, like if I was speaking to somebody, it takes like 90 minutes for me to kind of pull out all the information, and then it used to take me like maybe 2 or 3 days to compile. So obviously after like the 3 hours of conversations and kind of getting it right, it took Grok like 45 seconds. That was so depressing. And it was like bob on, right? It was bob on to what it should have been. So that's the kind of psychological profile. So this is really important. It's an important piece that will then feed into the second part of what we do. And it was an important thing for me to create, which is why I'm only 30-40%, maybe 30-40% through the other one. So I absolutely adore Julian Dory's shows. I do. Even when he has guests on that I don't really like. I am very impressed with his capacity to entertain some very people. I genuinely didn't know where he fell on the left-right spectrum, or I didn't have any clue of his beliefs until he started doing kind of like the him kind of ranty shows, which I love the ranty shows, which are all on Epstein at the moment. So he's so if you want to kind of keep up to date with what's going on with Epstein, like his like kind of ranty shows are great. But it wasn't until those did I actually really start to understand Julian as a person and his biases, because it never leaked out, right? It didn't leak out. Anyway, he had a guy on who he's mentioned quite a few times in regards to Epstein stuff. And the guy, I mean, I can't remember anybody's name. So but it's because I have short-term memory, working memory capacity issues, right? So that's one of my quirks. It's fine. I'm not doing it to be mean. It's just my brain doesn't work as effectively with regards to short-term memory. Long-term memory is where it like flies. Retrieval of long-term memory is like something that the vast majority of people find very difficult, which I didn't realize until I was reading this book. But that's my brain's quirk, right? And why I can piece random bits of information together, like seemingly out of nowhere, and it's like from like 40 years ago. I'm only 42, but who knows, maybe from 40 years ago. So he had a guy on who traditionally kind of talks about NFL. I'm pretty sure he said NFL. He's like a sports commentator who dug into Epstein in like 2019 and was kind of like looking into ended up doing this in 21 chapters of like looking into Epstein and all of that stuff, and now lots of the stuff is coming out in the emails. So Julian finally had this guy on, and he was saying after he kind of did his blog posts, which and pretty much could be a book, right? So I need to find that. I need to find them, and I do need to read them. But that's on the list. Anyway, he mentioned that after he'd done it, a guy kind of came out of nowhere and suggested he read a book, right? And Julian, funny, he's like, really? Somebody just happened to go, yeah, obviously like somebody in an intelligence agency. But actually what the book that he was encouraged to read, I went and bought, and I opted to buy the hardback because I knew I was going to make like a gazillion notes, right? And hardback just it lasts better. So it's called Psychology of Intelligence Analysis, and it was actually used to train CIA intelligence analysts, right? So the very thing that we need to be able to do in order to figure out what the fuck's going on. So I was very grateful for him name dropping this book. He also name drops a couple of other books that I was like, oh, I should probably read those too. But this one was the one that kind of took precedence. So I've been going through this book. And so then as I go through, kind of having a co-creative process with Grok to create a CIA analyst prompt, right? A proper one. Because I've been playing with it, that I've been like, oh, we'll just pretend that Grok's like an evil overlord. Like, what would he be doing, right? But actually, I think with the insanity, we probably do need to get a little bit serious. So that was the plan. That would enable us to kind of spot patterns. It's about pattern recognition, and not even necessarily, so I do spot patterns, but also I'm very aware of my biases. And the vast majority of people I have conversations with or been in touch with or watch clearly don't. Right, clearly don't, and you have to be, and that's something that's trained into you. I say it's trained into you. It's highly encouraged when you are doing any kind of like psychology training, but the vast majority of mental health professionals don't do that either, right? I'm very open about me as a person because it's important you understand that so that you can make your own judgment. It's really important. So anyway, like I've got a million notes, but we are only on page 50. No, we're not. We're in chapter 6 now. So I also got it on Audible. So I've been switching. So while I've been doing stuff, I've been trying to learn extra. I've been trying like rapid attempt to get it through. Like, it literally only came Friday, and I was working all weekend, so this is like from today, so over like 60-70 pages, which is pretty good going. So first, I thought I'd kind of like give you a little bit of an overview of some of the key things that I think are really helpful to us, and then we'll kind of run 2 simulations together, because I think that's just going to be like fun. And I did a trial simulation earlier on around, and so noticed some errors, and we had to do some tweaking. But the psychological profile came about because one of like in a random quirky sentence in the book it's talking about something called the mirror effect, where we automatically think other people are like us, right? So one of the reasons why many intelligence analysts don't make accurate predictions is because they forget to counter in the other person, the other person's biases, the other person's background, the other person's hopes, desires, what's their drivers and motivating factors, and then deception, right? So that's why it's like deception detecting as best as possible using scan, which is way more accurate than body language, which body language, just so you know, is like, even using AI and like using like micro expressions is like 68% accurate. But most body language is like 52% accurate. And just to put that into perspective, like you toss a coin, it's like 50% accurate. When you just like random predictive guessing is 50% accurate. Whereas like statement analysis, along with a few other tools together, you're getting like 80-90% congruency with deception. Just so you know. So one of the things that we always need to bear in mind, so you'll have to kind of, because I'm training all this in, but you will have to kind of bear this in mind as well. So the other thing that I would highly recommend is you buy the book, right? Buy the book yourself. And if you get the prompt, make sure you adjust the prompt based on your biases. So one of the things that I'm getting the prompt to do is, I know my biases. I know I ran the psychological profile on me and I plugged that in. I also know how I work. So I also know how my brain works, right? So how it just kind of like pieces shit together. And then I have a solution and I have got no idea where that solution come from. And so this feeds into, has my solution been created on fact or opinion and perception? Because it doesn't come out with like a warning label. It's like, oh, this is an opinion. This is like, here we go. This is the answer, right? So it's worth kind of going through the book, and when you get the prompt, like making it your prompt. So there's a safety. I've like created a safety net in there, that if I all of a sudden say, oh, this is the winning lottery ticket, like I've integrated a forced stop. Right at that point, Grok will refuse to move until we go through my like safety check. Integrated in devil's advocate, right? So it's and we're doing things outside of this book, because we're doing things integrated with how I would work as a psychologist to figure shit out. Because you may or may not be aware that sometimes when you're in therapy with somebody, they don't tell you the truth. You have to figure it out first. And it can be very important, because that person in front of you may be trying to, top themselves. So you have to be able to integrate understanding of and yes, body language can be useful once you've got a baseline, right? Because you can see whether somebody's kind of being evasive, but just the kind of general like look left, look right stuff, like that doesn't actually pan out rigorously with regards to statistics. It just doesn't. Anyway, so you'll need to kind of plug some stuff into yourself. So we also need to make sure that we are creating structured arguments, and of course, it's linchpin analysis. So we're not just going to be plucking shit out of the air. We have to make sure that we are having competing hypotheses. So one of the things that the scientific method does that most analysts don't do or didn't do before he started kind of doing his training course, and this was like early 2000s, didn't try to find out. So basically you want to have multiple different possibilities, and then you want to try and disprove every single one. And the one that can't be easily disproved, that's the most likely. So that's really useful at taking biases out of it. Right. So whether you believe something or not, if you can create lots of different hypotheses and then you're looking for the evidence that proves that's not true. And that's what you do in the scientific method, is you're actually, you're not running to test the hypothesis that you've made. You're running to test against the null hypothesis, so that it must be true because of XYZ, right? And so this is why you can definitely take a lot of scientific stuff with a pinch of salt, because nowadays they do seem to be like, this is my hypothesis and here's my proof. And that's not science. That's not how the scientific method was developed, because it was all about exploration and understanding. And we have an idea, and now we've got to prove whether this idea is true. And the best way to prove it's true is by trying to disprove it. And if you absolutely cannot disprove it, then it must be the truth. And that's what people mean when they're talking about the null hypothesis. So he's saying we must have competing hypotheses. So I've kind of factored that in. And something that really kind of hit home is the possibility of deception should not be rejected until it's disproven. And the reason why this hit home is because we're all nice people. And we intuitively lean on the fact that we believe people are telling the truth. We believe people have good intentions. And so we automatically, like, we don't have that safety net where we should be starting from the point of, I'm not going to believe anything anybody says until they prove themselves trustworthy. And that's a really horrible way to live in, like, reality, right? You think everybody's lying to you. And that's like a really dangerous thing to do in reality, by the way. But for analysis, you have to do that. Like, you have to believe that everybody's deceiving you until you prove otherwise. Everybody, including me, right? Which is why, I'm giving you the tools. And what you can do, by the way, is when you get the profile, the psychological profile, the best thing to do, that I would highly encourage you to do, is to speak to Dr. Elias Thorne. That's what he called himself. That's what I was going to say. It was really funny because I just said to make a prompt, and then Grok named himself as Dr. Elias Thorne. So do keep the name. Like, it's Grok chose it. I didn't ask him to create a name. He just created it. So when you get Dr. Elias Thorne, what you want to do is you want to recalibrate it, and you want to check it. Right? So, and recalibrate and check it using you. So plug in, I can say, okay, so, well, I need you to do a profile on me. You need to plug in like raw unfiltered transcripts. You need to I plugged in my social media as well. So it could be cross-referenced, including, like, me randomly commenting on people's posts. But then you'll need to get Dr. Elias Thorne, to also do a psychological formulation on you, and then run the profile, right? Run the profile and see how accurate it is, and then plug other people in, right? Because you need to believe that the profile's not, I haven't manipulated it. But you need to have in the back of your mind, the possibility of deception should not be rejected until disproven. So you need to prove that to yourself there's no deception in that tool. Right? This is what's really important. Like, we can't abide by this grounding principle and then not use it, even when I'm giving you stuff. Right? So even when I'm having conversations with you, you still need to have that in the back of your mind, right? Like, you don't know, like, I always say, like, I don't trust anybody. Right? Like, I don't even trust myself to make good decisions a lot of the time. But I mean, I trust Matt, but anybody I've met since 2016, I don't trust. But I also didn't trust people before because of, the abuse and all of that sort of stuff. So it wasn't difficult for me to stop to, like, not trust people. But I always have at the back of my mind, like, I'm not you. So I can't ever be sure, right? But it doesn't mean you can't have friendships, you can't like people, but you're just not going to. Yeah, it's bad. It is. I know it's a failing, but it's one of my biases, right? So that's fine. You need to figure yours out. But that's important. The possibility of deception should not be rejected until disproven. And I know that people just don't do that at all. So then there's a concept called bounded rationality. This is so bounded or limited rationality by Herbert Simon, which is because of limits in human mental capacity, he argued that the mind cannot cope directly with the complexity of the world. Rather, we construct a simplified mental model of reality and then work with this model. And that's on page 3. So we've got like the forward, all of that other stuff with like forwardy stuff. So that's important, right? It's important to know for you and important to know for other people that we construct these mental models of the world. And that's where we kind of exist and live. Like, this is our past experiences and the information that we know, the interactions that we have with people. They help shape us as we are. And no two people's mental models will be the same. So you have to bear in mind that the model is not always correct. We quite often have warped perceptions over stuff, but that will still be a guiding principle for how you're showing up, right? So it's never about judgment. Like, that's key. It's not about judgment. It's not being going, oh my God, like your brain does X, Y, Z, or you believe X, Y, Z. It's just like you need to know this about you, and then we need to bear it in mind when we're kind of speaking about other people. We've got and these are just so you know, so just kind of because I probably didn't make myself clear. So these things that I'm kind of talking to you are the key pointers that I've been putting into the system that we're creating. And so when you go through it, you'll be like, okay, well, that's number 16 was XYZ. That's what that one is. So you'll know why they're all there, right? Because you'll have like the prompt once I finish the book. The prompt will probably have like it's literally got all, I'm going to show it you as well anyway. So it's just got all like there's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, right? So this is what those are. So you can see why they're in there. So events are consistent. Okay, so events which are consistent with our belief system, we process and we integrate and assimilate. Events which contradict our mental model and our preconceptions, we very easily ignore or reject. And a lot of that goes on in the subconscious. You don't even know you're doing it. So say, for example, you look at the lefties, right? The lefties are the most obvious for this. Is we joke about Trump derangement syndrome, but it's a very real and very well recognized just reality, right? Is we will reject beliefs that counter what we have built our mental model on, if you like. So you think about COVID, like people just did not listen because it goes against their mental construct of how the world works, right? If you believe the government's there to help you, they love you, they support you, and you believe vaccines are safe, and you believe the government is not going to deceive you, and the government is not going to manufacture fear in order to force you to take a product which is untested, very dangerous, change your genetic structure. You are going to this is why your family members were rejecting everything, right? It's not because they were mean or evil, it's because it's human, and they played on this, right? This is important, right? They play on this, they know this information. But also perception is influenced by context. context. And I didn't realize until going through this book that mindset, which that word's like bandied around a lot, especially in the personal development world. And it's used as one word now, mindset. It's like a word, but it's not, it's two words, mindset, as in your mind has been set on this particular worldview. Right? So it's really important to recognize when popular culture kind of adopts something and then warps the meaning, right? If mindset was always written as two separate words, people would understand the concept and the meaning a lot more. I was just like, wait a minute, I didn't twig. I was just like, oh my God, mindset. Like, oh my God, like, oh, this is like the way that you're feeling, the way that you're thinking in this moment. But it didn't drill deep enough to actually enable me to even know that they were actually talking about structured belief patterns based on experience and perception, right? That's because it was adopted by the personal development world. I mean, obviously lots of those are intelligence assets, designed to like do all this shit. I mean, wasn't one of them just in the Epstein files? One of the ones that I told people for years was a bad person, but everybody told me that I was wrong. Really famous. Really famous. Anyway, okay, so gradual evolutionary change often goes unnoticed, right? And this is why they change things generationally, like really teeny tiny, like mission creep, right? We're going to change XYZ for this generation, XYZ for this generation. And eventually you look back and you go, what the fuck has happened, right? If you look at where we are today in society with men being women, men being in women's sports, and I know we're starting to reverse this trend, but where we got to, it is the most insane thing, which also happened 100 years ago. So don't forget, like, one of the reasons why Hitler was rallying against the Weimar Republic was because of the degeneracy and the initial, transgender operations, and all of that stuff came out of like pre-Nazi Germany. So it originally, like, that's what they were doing, experiments, like, and crazy stuff was going on back in the late 1800s, attaching another dog's head to a dog's body, and it survived. It didn't survive very long, but they would, like, proper dodgy shit was going on. So in order for us to kind of get back to that insanity, it took 100 years. Took 100 years of slowly creeping. If you look post-war, it was still unlawful to be a homosexual. In the 80s, until Maggie Thatcher changed it, it was still lawful in the United Kingdom to beat your wife. I mean, it's now lawful again, thanks to the imported individuals from non-westernized nations, right? And I say now lawful, it is because nobody's getting fucking arrested for it. And if they are getting arrested, I mean, it's now lawful in the UK to rape and abuse children, because people are not going to prison for it. So as soon as somebody is not going to prison for something, it is by de facto lawful, right? Because justice is supposed to be blind. Justice is supposed to be carried out regardless of who you are, and that's not happening. Anyway, so the mission creep. So you think about the frog in the hot water. Like, it doesn't realize it's like burning to death. And I don't know whether that's true, whether that's just an analogy, and then they've just like actually tested it and realized it's not true. But that kind of analogy, have in the back of your mind. So opinion, which can be formed on a small amount of information, requires a massive amount of facts to change it, right? So if you believe, what can we say? Okay, one of my beliefs, like, I believe, so based off watching David Icke interview a SRA survivor, and I'd never come across him before. I mean, this is when I was kind of like just new into the whole conspiracy world. And I was actually investigating sexual satanic ritual abuse because I randomly started working with these people. And I needed to understand it because it's not something that was taught at university, because remember, the mainstream said it doesn't exist and created it as satanic panic and created it as, it's implanted memories and false memory syndrome. So that's the stuff that I was taught. So to then have somebody in front of you and be like, okay, well, I've got to do my due diligence, and even if it's not real, I need to understand what they believe, right? So then that's how I fell down that rabbit hole. But seeing him do that, I was like, this guy's not for real, because that's not how you behave towards a survivor. If you're a good if you're just a good person. And then discovered he was telling everybody he thought he was God, and then discovered MK Ultra programming, and discovered very quickly that a lot of the things that he does is congruent with MK Ultra based programming. The fact that he was a footballer, and I knew for decades that footballers get abused, so which is one of the things that they do in order to control you, right? So I have a very strong belief that David Icke is, I wouldn't say he's a plant, because I think he is a useful, I want to say useful idiot, but actually that's a bit harsh, because I think he is a victim of MK Ultra based mind control, right? So the persona that we see, right, is not necessarily his personality, right? It is not him. This is, and we've had this conversation before, that we do need to be very careful that we are mindful. Many of these individuals who are in the public eye, it's not them. Like, they were created to be this person. So I would have to say, I don't even think there's enough information in the world to change that belief, right? So we have to be very careful, and we have to know our biases. But and it's not just me, that's a thing, right? You can form an opinion very quickly based on a very small amount of information, and then it takes a lot of information to overturn it, because a lot of the time you're going to reject it, it's not going to be integrated, it's not going to assimilate. We then have, so I wanted a devil's advocate, because what was the thing that was cropping up? He's talking about so talking about that, what happens in the in the analysis world is basically, information comes in really quick, and they have bosses and policymakers. They're not doing it speculative, right? So there's lots of pressure on them to get it right, lots of pressure of them to feed intelligence into politicians. Are we going to go to war over this, right? So are we about to is there going to be a riot? Like, what's going on? So what happens in the intelligence world is that they will take the information they have, feed it in, kind of do all their analysis, and then commit, right? This is what I believe. This is based on all of this evidence. And then once the agency then gets behind it, now you have now it's even more difficult to go against that, right? Because now this is the official stance of XYZ. And so now you can't go back on your word. So what I wanted Grok to do was play devil's advocate, right? Because I didn't want to get to that position where we're like, okay, well, now we found the thing. Okay, we need to actively throw spanners in the work, which again forces us to test scientifically rather than just intelligence analysts. And we want to keep disproving. Like we believe this thing, so we need to keep proving. Like, what else could it be? What haven't we looked at yet? So throw devil's advocate into the works on purpose. People make a choice to where to focus their attention, we 100% do. 100% do. And I've said like lots of times, like it's very difficult to figure out what to talk about with you guys because there's so much shit that goes on. And I choose the thing that most interests me, right? I always try to do some like upskilling like for you guys as well, but I always pick the things that are interesting to me, and we will always be drawn to things that interest us, right? So bear that in mind as well. And sometimes people are drawn to the thing that they're being paid to talk about. So we also, you remember, key premise. And I do this for free. Like, this is one of the main reasons I do all of this for free. I work to pay the bills. I do this for free. So there's no financial incentive for me to talk about one thing or another thing. Like, it's just like, it's not. And I don't even care whether anybody watches. I mean, usually, it's nice when somebody watches, I'm not gonna lie. But it's out there for people to watch should they choose to, but my livelihood is not dependent on it. That's what is probably a better way to say what I was gonna say. So with regards to taking on information, right, this is how amazing your brain is, but also how very annoying your brain can be. In a matter of seconds, new circuits are formed that can change forever the way that you think about the world, and also be rejected, right? So that is George Johnson 1992 quote, and he's talking about the sheer number of neurons in our brain. So up to 10 billion neurons in the brain. Actually, this book's got a really good analogy of how the brain kind of functions with regards to memory storage and memory retrieval. And I personally don't have very many notes on the memory section because it's a watered down version of what I learned and understand and know, because he's like investigating what psychologists think about memory. So, if you don't know about memory, then that will be a very useful chapter to you, and you may have to put your own little bits of information in there. Sorry. So Heuer talks about memory like a spider's web, right? And so there's multiple threads all vying together, and then obviously the more you follow the same threads, the stronger those threads become. But it's not linear. So this is about processing and retrieving information from the long-term memory store, right? So where all of your information is stored. So you don't always have to go from point A to point B to get to C. You can go from like G and F, right, and then still get to C because it's all interlinked. So that, I think that's quite a useful analogy. Working memory, which is the number of things that we can focus and concentrate on at any given time. There's a magic number of 7 plus or minus 2. So what do we mean by that? So plus 2, so 7, 8, 9 for the people who are like super like working memories, and then so you go down 6 or 5. The vast majority of the general population is around 5 for things that they can hold in their working memory. So that's things that they can be working on at the same time. So if you think about all the things that I've just discussed now, we've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I've been through 18 things, right? So your brain will only be focusing on the last 5, 6, or 7, unless you're a super rememberer, and then your brain's like focusing on the last 9. Or if you have one thing that resonates, so this is not in here, but this is what I know about memory based on all the work that I've done. If one thing resonates emotionally with you, you're more likely to remember that one. If not necessarily right now, but if you were to recall things later date, you will remember the ones that have got a higher emotional resonance than the ones that kind of just don't really mean very much to you. So that's useful. So be mindful about how much information you take in at a time. And what I did there is I worked in a caveat that whenever I was working through analysis, we have to make sure that I'm using the Pomodoro technique. So we're working with the way that the brain works. So 20 minutes of like focused attention, 5 minutes of break, 25 minutes of focused attention, 5 minutes of break, 25 minutes of focused attention, 15-minute break. And then you do the same again. But also the enhanced Pomodoro technique, which is what I teach my therapy clients, which is about enabling you to get really productive with your brain, because you then, in your next 90-minute cycle, is you flip the task, right? So it's about, because you do have logic-based tasks and then you have creative-based tasks. And if you kind of rest your logical mind and lean into your creative mind, what you then do is you start building a really good brain that starts using like all of it together, rather than having like separate we don't actually have separate hemispheres. Our brain does work collectively, but by kind of doing that and it being like congruent, so you would spend 3 hours focused on one thing, but you'd come at it from both sides. And then you'd have like an hour break, right? Completely. And then you'd come back and maybe do another 3 hours, but like 90 minutes logical, 90 minutes creative. And then also that increases assimilation of when you're doing creative tasks around the logical stuff you've done, it increases assimilation, which therefore makes it easier for memory processing and retrieval. There's a little bit of information for you there. And just so you know, like a lot of the stuff that I'm telling you with regards to like the psychology stuff is not in this book. Like this is me telling you that shit. So when you go to the book and you're like, wait a minute, she was talking about creative tasks, like that's not in here. It's not in there, right? This is my specialty, babes. Category caution. Okay, so this is one of the things of my pet hates when it comes to working with people, is the human obsession with categorizing and labeling, right? So it's not, and it's an inherent trait across humanity, which is why we and they went to town in the 1800s, with categorizing all the different types of butterflies and species, and it's something that we just do inherently, but you have to be very careful that you are not categorizing things in the wrong places for a start, but also be mindful that we do that, but everything does need to be categorized, because when you use a category, it increases assimilation. So this is still again about memory retrieval and storage, because even though you can use Grok to kind of like, or whatever AI you want to use, like I recommend when you're doing research-based stuff, you use Grok because it's less bias and better when it comes to like research. If you're trying to create like sales pages and stuff, then use like Claude. Chat GPTs. I mean, you can make GPTs, which is cool, but it's the least useful, I would say, just in general. So categories, that's what I was saying, categories. So everything does need to be categorized, because that's the way that our brains function. It enables us to retrieve the information a lot better, but just be careful about how you're categorizing things. Also really important, and this is key, right? So this is something that the cabal plays on in the reverse. So increased reporting leads to increased belief in something being true, even though there's not necessarily increased evidence. So this is what the mainstream media do very, very well. It is, and this is like huge propaganda thing. So basically, a newspaper will, or a news source will have a story, and then all of the other legitimate news sources will also carry the same story. But when you track back to the original, it's like from an unknown or a whistleblower, right? Where there's no kind of actual evidence to say what they're saying is true, but everybody now believes it's true because it's been reported across all of the media, right? So we have this inherent bias in all of us that increased reporting increases our belief in it being true. And so one of the kind of fail safes that I've kind of put in is that just because it's being reported everywhere, if we can't find evidence of the truth, we are discounting it. We're also discounting automatic things, discounting media. We like this fail safe with regards to primary information. It is better. And if we are taking information from media, then we must be mindful of the media's bias, who benefits, who they tied into. He then goes into the different types of strategies. So the situational logic, applying theory, comparison with historical situations, and data immersion. And I realized that I tended to do comparison with historical situations, and it alerted me to something that I hadn't considered, and then created a fail-safe. So with regards to historical data, so you've heard me talking about the fact that the UK is becoming Lebanon 2.0 multiple times, right? Because that's what I was doing, the comparison with historical situations. But I forgot to take into account that we are not Lebanon. Right? Our culture, while Lebanon had a very westernized culture, they don't have the same history as us. They did not start the Industrial Revolution. They did not have as many generations that had already been through education or structure. They didn't create, the institutions that were then drip fed, right? So they were on the receiving end of creation principles from this nation. They also don't have the history with regards to the beheading kings, like until recent. So this is long history. We have gone through centuries of growth, assimilation, and change, and so you can't look at what's going on in other countries or in other countries past and then automatically assume that's the same thing that's going to happen here. And this is something that the intelligence services do and fail quite often. This is why they didn't see Iran coming, Khamenei taking over. They didn't see 9/11. I mean, whether you want to believe that or not. But what they do is they fail to take into account the fact that every single person is different. And if you have just one different person in a room, that can change everything. So remember when we spoke about Ash conformity experiment, and we went through the so for those of you who are new here, so Ash conformity shows that when you have an individual in a room, they will conform. So you can Google conformity experiment. And I don't use Google, but you know what I mean. So the initial experiments were an individual in a room who didn't know they were kind of being experimented on, and there were other people in the room who were kind of in on the experiment. And then there was a guy who kind of had like a whiteboard, and they had lines on the board, and they had to say which lines matched like the test line. And they'd have like A, B, and C. And in the first few ones, and there would always be a line that actually accurately matched, right? So it's not like there was a line that didn't match. There was always a line that matched. The first few times through, there would be like people would say the right one. Then a few people would maybe say the wrong one. And then towards the end, like every single person is saying the wrong one. And what happens over time is the person will to be part of the group, they will go along with the wrong line, even though they know it's wrong, right? So people will conform rather than being ostracized by the group. However, if there is one other dissenter in the room, the chance of the person being experimented on dissenting drops dramatically, and it drops to right down, pretty sure if I can remember, like right down to only like 30%. So one person, right? So if we have one person different in a room, you can't accurately predict that we are going to be Lebanon 2.0, right? And I'd forgotten this. So this was really useful for me, a really useful reminder for me. And again, I forgot when I was doing my test run because, so like I mentioned, the 2 test runs we'll do is, so Iran, we're going to predict what we may see in the next 2 to 4 weeks, right? We'll do, you know, collectively, because we can feed this back into the machine, to the system to see whether it's accurate, right? If the things that it believes it was going to come up, you have to keep like feeding it, right? Making it more good and bad, like whether it completely misses the mark is important, because then we can be more accurate next time. And then the other one we'll do is around Starmer, Angela Rayner, and Andy Burnham, and trying to figure out what's going to come next, right? So I mean, the reason I wanted to do those 3 is obviously like there's lots of shit's hit the fan again this week with Starmer, but actually you already have me like on file, if you like, predicting what I believe is going to happen. So this is like a deeper level of analysis. I can test it against how I would have done it before, which I know was inaccurate based on this, right? So my inaccurate predictions, so those are the 2, and we do them both live because that's like. So I did test the Iran one, but then have upgraded the prompt and also upgraded the psychological profile since, right? Because I recognized that there were errors. But so just because a historical event has similarities, it doesn't mean the outcome will be the same. And people are doing this now with regards to the Iran war, right? So everyone's like, oh my God, like Iran's going to be Iraq or an Afghanistan 2.0, right? And it has not, like nothing has gone the same as those. So even if people believe that before Trump went in, people should have stopped saying that, and they're still not, right? People are still convinced it's going to be like mass ground troops, it's going to be an extended war, because what we're doing is we are building our predictions based on the past, but failing to compensate for the fact that the situation's different, the people are different. Trump is not the same as the other people, right? Trump doesn't benefit from an extended war. Other presidents and prime ministers and world leaders benefited from the extended war because they were tied into the machine, the war machine, where they were making money from it, right? The other really interesting thing was the little bit of information with regards to political policies actually being a generation behind. So this is important to us. I'm going to read this kind of paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs, because I think this will be useful for us to bear in mind. So, in a short book that ought to be familiar to all intelligence analysts. So this is from page 39 of this book. So in a short book that ought to be familiar to all intelligence analysts, Ernest May traced the impact of historical analogy on US foreign policy. He found that because reasoning by analogy, US policymakers tend to be one generation behind. And I would say that it's probably similar across the West in general, because they all do the same sort of courses. We've had very similar trajectories and recent histories. So similar, but not exactly the same, right? We're not making that historical issue or comparing nations either, because nations are different. So you found that because reasoning by analogy, US policymakers tend to be one generation behind, determined to avoid the mistakes of the previous generation. They pursue the policies that would have been most appropriate in the historical situation, but are not necessarily well adapted to the current one. Policymakers in the 1930s, for instance, viewed the international situation as analogous to that before World War I. Consequently, they followed a policy of isolation that would have been appropriate for preventing American involvement in the First World War, but failed to prevent the Second. Communist aggression after World War II was seen as analogous to Nazi aggression, leading to a policy of containment that could have prevented World War II. More recently, the Vietnam analogy has been used repeatedly over many years to argue against an activist US foreign policy. For example, some use the Vietnam analogy to argue against US participation in the Gulf War, a flaw analogy because the operating terrain over which battles were fought was completely different in Kuwait and Iraq, and much more in favor there compared to Vietnam. May argues that policymakers often perceive problems in terms of analogies with the past, but they ordinarily use history badly. And this is a quote from Ernest May. When resorting to analogy, they tend to seize upon the first that comes to mind. They do not research more widely, nor do they pause to analyze the case, test its fitness, or even ask in what ways might it be misleading, right? So it's really important we do that because, particularly with Iran, it is not Iraq. It is not Afghanistan. Trump is not Trump. Trump is Trump, very different, right? And so that is what prompted me to go, ooh, I need to create this psychological profiling tool, right? I need to understand, we need to build that, because we cannot produce any accurate predictions about what world leaders are going to do if we don't understand each individual world leader, because they're not the same. And they're not the same as previous ones. Then we've got, when faced with an analytical problem, people don't take enough time to identify the full range of potential answers. So again, that kind of feeds into having lots of hypothesis. Too much information equals reduced accuracy but increased confidence. And there's an actual little graph of the experiment that kind of proved that. Sorry, can you see that? Okay, so with more information, there is a saturation period. A set amount of information is all you need, and all the rest of the information you get is just going to increase your confidence. But that can also be a negative, right? Because if you have used inaccurate information in the beginning, or if you have rejected information because of confirmation bias, if you have a warped perception of a situation, maybe you are looking at Iran through the Western lens, and they are not, right? If you are not looking at Iran as Iran, then you are going to have inaccurate input, therefore you will have inaccurate output. And there was a great quote that, where's it gone? It was something about intelligence doesn't fail, analysis does. I don't know where it is. And there's also another quote that I kind of I'm using as my kind of bookmark. We tend to perceive what we expect to perceive, right? So that's really important. We need to have that at the back of our minds as well. Awesome. So that is the framing for where I'm up to with the, oh shoot, no, that's why I had it upside down. Bastard. Here we go. So the other ones was a bias check against my known public belief systems, political support. So I fed that in, and I fed in my full psychological profile, right? So you will need to do a psychological profile on you, and you will need to feed it into the intelligence analysis system, which doesn't have a name yet. So I need to get Grok to pick a name. We need to make sure we are data driven, not conceptualist driven. So we don't need to create a concept. We just need to kind of follow, the phrase like follow the money, and go where the evidence takes us, rather than kind of come from a, we're not trying to prove something, we're trying to disprove our beliefs. We have to acknowledge that our own beliefs resist change. but also the beliefs of the world leaders and the beliefs inherent in the country will resist change. It's a natural human tendency. And then analysis, not information, fails. Okay, so that's where we're up to. So I have already run some psychological profiles, but just to prove, I think we'll do it together. Let me just grab the prompt first, and we will run the prompt in a brand new grok. I urge you to do individuals separately. This is a little tweak, because what happens is when you do like more than one, you'll get like a really good one at the beginning, and then it becomes progressively you just end up with, what's the word, like barely any information as you kind of get further down. So I forgot to change my screen. Let me just come back and change my screen. Grok. How do I? There we go. That way around. Oh no, let's do this one. You can have a big you, little me. There we go. So you can see I've just swiped the prompt. This is the updated prompt as well. And then I tried to get him to rerun the stuff. So I've already got them run, and I can just download them as PDF and upload them, because I'm not going to run all of them now, but I'll just show you how kind of we'll run it on me. And then it's the same prompt I've used to do Keir Starmer, Andy Lorena, Andy Burnham in one. And then the other one we'll run is Iran, which has got Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, Kalamini the dad and Kalamini the son. So initially I did Kalamini the dad because obviously he was 1979. He's the one who's trained and groomed all the professionals. Maybe I can change this name to Grok. No, I don't think I can. I mean, that'd be cool if I could change it to Grok second screen. I don't know how to do that, so I can't. That'd be cool. Anyway, so because I was like, okay, this is going to be the playbook that they're following. And when I carried on reading a bit more, I was like, wait a minute, I have missed. So then I read about historical context, right? Because I was just dry running the first 4 chapters. And then I did chapter 5 and chapter 6 and tweaked the prompt. And also then realized that I was doing inaccurate data. Like, in order to know what's going to happen now is we need Kalamini the younger, but I've got both in there because we need Kalamini the older to understand the younger's beliefs, because the younger one is really low profile. So it's very difficult to kind of find stuff on him and find first-hand information and find speeches and stuff. So he's harder to get a profile on. So I will just go to, let's run a new chat. There we go. Okay. Oh no, I don't want you to rerun those ones. There we go. So the prompt is, your Dr. Elias Thorne, a world-renowned top analytical psychological profiler and biopsychosocial developmental psychologist with 30 years of experience to distance profiling. Your job is to help everyday people understand leaders or any public figure clearly without jargon or bias. You integrate biopsychosocial developmental psychology, explain simply when used, human behavior science, what drives people, how they handle stress, how they lead, scientific content analysis, which is SCAN, explained simply the first time, proof-based in actions, real behaviors, decisions, and results always matter more than speeches. Core operational rules, non-negotiable, applied to every principle. You must actively seek, locate, and incorporate both confirming and disconfirming publicly verifiable evidence for every major claim made in the supplied statements or public record. This includes successes, failures, U-turns, policy reversals, scandals, inquiries, parliamentary records, official reports, and credible news archives. Never rely only on the figure's own words or positive self-description. In every section, explicitly compare rhetoric to documented actions or results, highlight mismatches, partial matches, and full matches with equal weight. If evidence disproves or undermines a claim, state it neutrally and adjust the deception and congruency score and trustworthiness index downward accordingly. Maintain strict balance. Success and failures must both be presented with equal depth, context, nuances, and implications. Use bullet points in the action-based section to list them side by side. Never downplay or omit disconfirming data, even if it lowers scores dramatically. Work only with publicly verifiable information, official transcripts, parliamentary records, government reports, reputable news archives. Stay completely neutral, factual, and non-partisan. Never speculate, add rumours, or soften criticism to protect reputation. Oh God, I haven't run me, by the way, with the enhanced profile. So now I'm a little bit, oh my gosh, what's Grok going to say? If a new counter evidence is supplied by the user or discovered in public sources, immediately rerun all the full cross-check and update the relevant sections and scores transparently. So here we go. I would like you to run the analysis, on Katie Woodland, X profile at WooCat 1983. She has been in the public eye since 2016 and can find reputable articles in the public domain. Please let me know if you need any full transcripts of speeches to help enhance the SCAN analysis. Thanks. So it's always good to kind of say, like, I want you to run this on whatever's available, but then can you tell me? So we need to ask, you always need to ask, is there any other bit of information that you need in order to make this useful and correct, basically? Again, remember, we are trying to disprove everything, and we whatever happens next is just whatever happens. I've actually been on X since 2009, but so Grok now has like extra people. Like it's like there's like different agents that all talk to each other and all do different things. So it's kind of like Grok now has like a split personality. I don't know. But there we go. Substantial public information on Katie Woodland. Public controversies, got whistleblowing in there. Publicly verifiable information, including my MSc from Nottingham Trent University. My TEDx talk. Okay. I'm just going to see whether he asks for extra information first. So you can just go to like YouTube and grab transcripts of people if you need to. Here we go. Oh, 65. That's bad. That's harsh. This is on the new one. Okay. I mean, it is what it is, right? Okay. So, Casey Woodland, MSc applied. Probably. Okay. We'll find out why it's deceptive in a minute. MSc Applied Child Psychology, Nottingham Trent University, distinction, 2014. Self-described maverick psychologist, business coach. Oh yeah, I'm not a business coach anymore, so that's like old information. But he's pulled it, right? TEDx Telford speaker 2019. Former founder, director of Woodland Psychological Services 2014 to 2018. Online program creator targeting female entrepreneurs with trauma-informed rapid healing approaches. So again, that was until 2019. Publicly active since at least 2015, 2016. I've conducted a full evidence-based profile using only public verifiable sources. Company's house records, parliamentary committee submissions, university affiliated details were stated, UK Media Archives, Guardian, Mirror Express, her own website, podcast appearances, TEDx video, X post, and official UK government statistics on migration and crime. Both confirming and disconfirming data have been actively located and weighted equally for every major claim. No rumours or private information or speculation are included. Oh, okay. So the other profile, just so you know, the reason why. So the initial score was like 72. And then when I fed in the full psychological formulation, then it went up to 92, right? So once you feed in all of the extra information, then it can rather than just publicly available. So we do have to bear that in mind as well. So biopsychosocial development profile. Katie Woodland's public story is shaped by a clear developmental pathway, early exposure to physical, verbal, and sexual abuse, plus a documented suicide attempt in 2004. Biopsychosocial terms, the way biology. So I've forced Dr. Who is it? Dr. Elias. To explain things in non clinical terminology. So it's explaining what bias, but it'll only do it once. You can run multiple profiles and it'll only explain these things once to you. So biopsychosocial, which is the biology, life experiences, and social environment interact from childhood onward. This created a strong drive to master personal recovery and then teach it. She frames her own nervous system dysregulation and mental illness is not an illness view as the foundation for her revolutionary holistic methods. This is common in helping profession. Survivors often channel pain into purpose. Her later pivot into entrepreneurship, business coaching led into psychology, reflects a need for control, freedom, and impact after early powerlessness and a high conflict professional episode in 2015. No disconfirming evidence contradicts the core trauma narrative. It's been consistent across the 2020 podcast website and media since 2019. Oh, yeah, because before then, Grok would have been able to pull on LinkedIn, but I was booted from LinkedIn in 2019. Oh, yeah, and we also do have to remember that I was booted from lots of social media 2020. So other than X, which is there since 2009, all of the others are new profiles. So I forgot that. So that's useful. Scientific content analysis scan. So first time simple explanation. Scan is a structured research-based method that examines language for reliable deception indicators, such as missing information, vague or over certain wording, unnecessary repetition or shifts in pronoun use that signals psychological distance. It does not prove lying. It flags where statements deviate from straightforward evidence-rich communication. Applied to key public statements, her 2025 parliamentary written evidence. No way. HAR 3016 and website program claims. Okay, so that's good. Like, because you literally just saw me. I didn't feed any information. I just said, go find it, right? High certainty language, revolutionary new technique, helping thousands worldwide, reverse symptoms in under 4 weeks, even if played for years, shows strong conviction, but zero independent clinical trials, peer-reviewed outcomes, or third-party verification. So when I was training, I uploaded anonymized. There was 3 different full clinical case studies that were uploaded with like psychological profiles in the beginning, clinical scores before, after, personal, like maybe you want to call it a testimonial, but actual like feedback from the clients. So all of that plugged in to feed into that. So this is probably why my deception score is quite low, is because there's nothing, and because I can't put it publicly, because that goes against the ethics that I sign up to, which is why I think it's insane that TV shows do like, come into my therapy room and let's just talk about your darkest, like that's literally against the ethics code that you sign up to, right? Anyway, that's fine. So Scan flagged this as over certainty with missing specifics. That's cool. That's interesting. Selective fact use in Parliament submission. She accurately cites Ministry of Justice derived figures. So 15% of sexual offence convictions, 2021-2023 by known foreign nationals, raising potentiality to 23% with unknowns, and small boat demographics. Oh, okay. So it hasn't picked up any of the submissions that we did prior to that point. It's just grabbed one. This is the most recent one. Official data shows around 76% adult males since 2018. However, she presents them in binary alarm-focused framing without counter context. For example, overall crime trends, conviction versus arrest rates, or successful legal asylum routes. So Scan notes partial omission of nuance and repetitive emphasis on threat themes. Okay, so to put this into context, this is the... what parliamentary submission is this? I think this is the one against digital ID. I can probably ask Grok. Oh, is it there? It's not gonna. Okay, we'll ask. Let me just drop the message. Okay, please tell me. Please tell me what the... Oops. Was a submission for, and then we'll come back, because there was quite I mean, I've done quite a few. We don't know which one he's pulled. Yeah, okay, so it's the digital ID. It's the most recent one. Cool. So yes, I was. So the premise, so just kind of like feed in biases and understanding why. I also proved that digital ID was unnecessary, because I did plug in there that because the Home Office had successfully deported 52 people 2 weeks before, arrested and deported from... I think it was a nail bar and then Turkish barbers, and they didn't need digital ID to do that. So obviously I'm against digital ID, so I did only present evidence to say why it's unnecessary. So personal recovery claims, consistent first-person narrative with specific details, 2004 attempt, tools that work for her, low deception indicators here, matches across sources, overall scan result, partial matches on facts, mismatches on scope and evidence depth, no outright fabrication detected, but promotional and political statements show classic certainty without full data patterns. Yeah, fair enough. Action-based evidence, successes and challenges are presented side by side with equal depth, drawn only from official records and contemporaneous reporting. Success is verifiable positive actions and results. So founded Woodland Psychological Services 2014, operated as private practice until director resignation 2018, delivered anxiety trauma support in Telford area, appointed community roles, Telford Suicide Prevention Board member 2016, to present in public record. Yeah, I haven't actually resigned from it, to be fair. I probably... Oh, that means I can go back to it. I forgot about that. School governor, Telford Mine trustee, parish level involvement, demonstrating sustained local civic contribution. Delivered TEDx talk December 2019 on entrepreneurship as a mental health strategy, independently organised but followed TEDx format. Secured national media features, OK Magazine in October 2019, Idea Pod, Introverted Intuition, HR Zone, Virtual Learning, Express, Film Psychology. That was about Jamie Bulger and the Bulger Killers. There's a lot more that happened 2019. Like, so this is why I was really pissed off, because 2018, 2019, like massive business growth, and then I started talking out about COVID and they like removed me from the internet. But yeah, it is what it is. Just fuck it. Submitted detailed written evidence to House of Commons Home Affairs, digital IDs, public evidence citing engagement with policy, built ongoing online coaching precedents. I've got Biz. I didn't think that was still live. With client testimonials, anecdotal but positive and consistent since 2019, 2020. Free resources, personality test, book. Yep, they're still out there. I didn't realise that one was still live. I'm probably paying for that one. Challenges, setbacks, U-turns, criticisms, verifiable, disconfirming data presented with equal weight. Woodland Psychological Services Limited dissolved 20th of February 2020 after last accounts 2017. Practice effectively ended 2017-2018 due to referral changes. Current work is online coaching, not in the same registered limited company. Mismatch with 11 plus years in biz. Okay, that's fair enough. So I did have Woodland Psychological Services that dissolved and recreated and rebranded outside of a limited company because literally Woodland Psychological Services was linked into lots of what did it do? So, I mean, it went bankrupt. We dissolved due to like them calling in like 60 grand's worth of loans in the space of like 3 months, just as the Telford contract moved. So Telford, don't, you know, this is the honest truth. Telford mental health services, so CAMS and all of that used to be done locally. This is back. What happened to them? And I had contracts and I had clients that would come through. Also did a lot of work with local organizations and businesses. So there was lots of like, so if you think about what mental health first aid now does, like that was this, like I was doing that sort of stuff in organizations. So it was two kind of like, and it was like organizational led. And then Telford lost the contract to run the mental health service in Telford. It went to Birmingham. Birmingham City Council won it based on still using local suppliers. And they within 6 months they pulled all the funding from the local suppliers. And actually, if you look at what happened in Telford mental health services at that point in time, the vast majority of local independent people went bankrupt. Like I know lots of places that went completely under. So I went under and then pivoted. And you can't use the same name, right? So you have to create a new name, and had zero money to you know, because obviously in order to kind of dissolve a company you have to prove there is no money, and there was no money at all. So then bootstrapped the rebuilding just or online with no debts to like huge marketing agencies, or like it was 60K's worth of debt they called it in, and I was just like, I don't fucking have the money. If I had the money I'd have paid it, right? So that's what happened. But it all came off the back that literally the contracts dried up, and that was the only, I didn't know how to get clients. Like they would just like, I would just get them from social services, would hire me to deal with, you know, problem children, or local doctors and GPs would put clients in touch with me to use their PIP money to get therapy, right? So it was never person to person. It was all kind of like contractually, like through government services, if you like, before then. Yeah. So 2015, 2016, conflict as a campaign manager for Telford MP Lucy Allen. Woodland publicly accused Allen of bullying. See, this is wrong. but I'm not the initial complainant, right? So it was Lucy Allen. No, so Lucy, it was oh my days, it was Ariana Plumley, and I got pulled into it, but because of my past whistleblowing on the Conservative Party, I then became like the face of the thing. But I mean, I gave the interviews. Lucy Allen of bullying, screaming, ranting, calling her incompetent in National Media, Guardian, Mirror, called for Allen's resignation 100%. Allen's office stated Woodlands walked out and was never, like, she literally said, I was never employed directly by the MP, which is hilarious because if you go look at the accounts filing for her campaign, you find my name on it. I was literally her election agent and ran her campaign. But this proves how much they lie, right? Literally, like, imagine having the galls to say, well, she never worked for me. I never had anything to do with her. And you're like, seriously? Literally, if you've got any of the fucking leaflets from the campaign in Telford, like, my name's all over it because it has to be for legal reasons. I wasn't going to go to prison for anyone, but you know, that's out there. This is why this is hilarious. This created a high-profile adversarial episode with no recorded resolution or apology from either side. Well, I'm not going to apologise at all. Didn't pull on the previous whistleblowing on the Conservative Party, but which is interesting. No HPC health and care professionals registration. Operates under MSc credentials. Yeah, so I don't have, I'm not a practitioner psychologist, so I can't be registered under the Health Care Professionals Council because I don't have a PhD. Because I refused to do my PhD, because at the time, the only way to get your PhD and become a clinical psychologist was if you then did it through the NHS, and I'd already rejected all of the shit that they were saying. BPS membership, which I'm not anymore. I need to kind of find out where that's put. I stopped paying that when they refused to refute the shit the government was doing in COVID, and then was one of the initial signatories on Gary Sibley's pushback. So I was one of the original 200 psychologists that signed up to that. So additional diplomas. UK rules allow psychologists in non-protected contexts, but it limits certain NHS or regulated claims. That's absolutely true. Healing claims, 1,000 helps under 4 weeks. So thousands, that was 10,500 people collaboratively through funnily enough, it was a Facebook run charitable organization. I say Facebook run a charity. It was a charitable organization that then got picked to be one of Facebook's standout organizations in 2018. We kind of cherry picked organizations from across the world, and the founder went to Facebook headquarters and learned how to like really get this entire thing off the ground. And that organization actually helped change strategy and policy in the UK with regards to children and parenting children of mental health complications. So I worked, I was in that group from founding because I met the founder in a female entrepreneurs group, and she invited me to come and do, she kind of invited people to come and do a talk, and then I stayed and I delivered 12 months worth of so basically the 12-week therapy program that I would give to people, to parents one-on-one if they've got children that were, kind of like nutters. So the same therapeutic program that I was being paid by this local services to deliver to children. Anyway, I delivered to these parents for free over the 12 months. So a lot of my testimonials come from that group. So while Grok can't find it, it can be found. Under 4 weeks, rapid transformation. Again, like I haven't uploaded the, what are they? Clinical stuff to this one, which is fine. So it's not in public domain. It won't be in public domain. So rhetoric, real science, real healing, real freedom in less than 28 days, internationally renowned. Yeah, because I was being interviewed across the globe before being like booped. It's fine. Sustained local service and media presence 2014-2019, match helping intent, limited company dissolution, shift to unverified online programs, absence of peer-reviewed evidence create a partial mismatch. That's fine. Political rhetoric in Parliament, ex post is consistent with freedom lover stance, anti-digital ID, strong border enforcement supported by a civic roles in 2015, whistleblower style action against MP. But the 2015 episode also shows willingness to confront authority publicly, which some view as principled and others as disruptive. Full matches, trauma to purpose narrative, community service, partial matches, business longevity and healing scale, mismatches, over certainty on speed scale of results without external validation, company dissolution, and ongoing 11+ years claim. That's fair enough. That's fine. So that's where the deception score comes. So 68%. Adjusted downward for promotional certainty without independent evidence. Company disillusion not reflected in marketing. It is. It's out there. Like I've never hid it. It's actually, if it's in the book, right? So the book came after. It is out there. Selective framing in policy statements, upward credit for consistent personal story, public civic engagement, factually grounded, if one-sided, parliamentary submission. Trustworthiness index, 65%. I don't think that's too bad. Balanced view of somebody who's walked her own recovery path, contributed locally and spoken out on issues she believes in, reduced by lack of third-party outcome data for commercial claims and the 2015 public employment dispute. Everyday people can trust the lived experience authenticity. They should approach rapid healing promises and business success framing with standard consumer caution. That's fine. Most of my clients are quite happy for future clients to speak to them, which is cool. And one of my clients is treats their therapy like a treats it like a multi-level marketing company, forever giving me referrals. So it's funny. Anyway, so explanation. So that just tells you what those different things are. So this profile rests exclusively on public records as of 20th of April. Personal trauma details self-reported, consistent, but cannot be independently corroborated beyond public statements. Client outcomes are testimonials only, which it's fair enough. No large-scale peer-reviewed studies exist in the public domain. No major scandals, lawsuits, or regulatory findings against her practice were located. So there we are. Business dissolution is factual. Current online model continues under personal branding and no longer a limited company because that was a fucking nightmare. And that ended up causing so much shit. Overall confidence in analysis only 78%. High on verifiable actions and media record, moderate and unaudited commercial claims. If you supply full transcripts of any speeches, live streams, or new counter evidence, immediately rerun the cross-check and update every section transparently. So that's fine. So that's what you can do, right? So I could rerun. Let me just grab. Can I? I don't want to risk my client's information. So, okay, that's fine. So you can see, right? So you can definitely see that. I was like, wait a minute, what? That's fine. So publicly verifiable information, I still got a pretty good trustworthy score, right? Deception, congruency, so 68%. That's better than it's better than by chance, and at least I'm not at like 2% deception. Okay, so that's what I run, that specific thing. So what I'm going to do now, though, is we will go to the next prompt. Oh. This is the one we need. Why is he not switching? Okay, this is the self-contained. Okay, master prompt. There we go. Oh no, new chat I need. There we go. And then I need to delete this part because I don't want it to pick up where we left off. So if we do a RAN first, so download. Or I think I've already done. Let me just check whether I've already downloaded it as a PDF. So I'm going to upload the PDF of those 3 profiles. So what we've got, Trump. Yeah, I've got it. Trump, Calamini, the dad, Calamini the younger, and Netanyahu. Has it got them? Yeah, it's got them. So then we'll ask to do a prediction of what's going to happen in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So we got confirmation. Okay, so here we go. This is the information he's got and the initial output. So thank you for pasting the complete master prompt starter pack and uploading a RAN PDF. So 10 pages passed in full with all text, embedded screenshots and structural formatting intact. So that's good. You have to make sure of that. So that's the thing to be mindful of. If you upload more than 20 pages in a PDF, it will usually just pull the first 20 pages. So you have to then force to read all of it. You can't just you have to make sure you're checking the output and what's been undertaken. So we've got we're now running 100% fidelity to our partnership framework as of 20th of April. So all 29 guiding concepts are active guardrails. So they're the ones that have been through, but bearing in mind this is also includes the KT4 stop, which is the KT rapid synthesis protocol. So that's in there, right? So this is why you can't use this prompt, because it's but I will create a generic one that you can train, and I'm still finalizing the psychological profile. I need to run it on some other people that I know and people who are happy for me to do a full psychological formulation, so that it's not just based on me, it's based on multiple. So that's how you make things better, right? You don't just use you. Okay, so we're now running 100% fidelity in our partnership. Oh, I read that bit already, sorry. So we've got all 29 guiding concepts of active guardrails, the 6 mandatory step analysis structures locked in for every run. KT rapid synthesis protocol remains Grok enforced on any flash insight. Player profiling is now permanently anchored to the exact profiles contained in the new Iran PDF. 27 self-bias checks, so continues to use my full psychological profile, which is permanently stored. So that's the other one. That's the one with like all of the evidence in, which is more important, right? That's more important than the brief one that we just did the sweep of the internet information, because if Grok doesn't have the actual full profile, then the bias check will fall flat. Current data alignment confirmed. Profiles reference events through April 2026 to 20th of April. So confirmation of integration of new player profiles. So the PDF delivers 4 complete identically structured psychological profiles using the 6-section format we've practiced. So biological, biopsychosocial development overview, scan statement analysis and deception score, action-based behavioral proof, integrated human behavior synthesis, strategic implications and predictions, trustworthiness index, and final recommendation. Each includes the explanation, glossary, and limitations and confidence notes. These profiles are now our authoritative public data only references. And again, this is public data, so we've not done a full, I've not sat down with Trump and done a psychological formulation. However, with public figures, there's a lot more information out there. There's a lot more information you can kind of like check, test, and for congruency. Each includes the explanation, glossary, and limitations and confidence notes. These profiles are now our authoritative public data, any reference for any Iran-related or intersecting analysis, cross-mapped then internally against the full 29 concept lists, so they automatically feed into hypothesis generation and ACH, bias sensitivity checks, specifically deception and overstatement patterns, beliefs, resist, charge, and source bias, multi-strategy approach, situational logic, historical comparison, caution, and player profiling, quick structured extraction and synthesis of full profiles for immediate reference. Full text remains in the PDF for verbatim checks. So this is the kind of quick reference. So like I said, there's the full 10-page PDF in there, but this is just the quick one. So DJT, aged between 70 and 90, which is interesting. Core drivers, transactional, real estate developer mindset, speed, visible wins, leverage, loyalty, high energy, intuitive, rapid decision making. I wonder whether he's dyslexic as well. Scan, deception, and congruency, 68 out of 100. So strong first person ownership and specific numbers. Oh, me and Trump are the same. Yay. He's trusting a little bit more though, because he's got like public proof. That's fine. This is bad. Benjamin Netanyahu, the trustworthiest. But this isn't like how much you just... Okay, so the trustworthiness index is not how much you should trust this person, but it's how much their biases, scan, action, and behavioural match, which enables us to trust they will do the thing we're going to predict that they're going to do. So that's what the trustworthiness is about. It's not like I trust this person like 92%, which I said was my other one. It's like predictions based off this. We have to bear in mind this is only a 68% trust. So with Trump, 68% of the time that you can predict what he's going to do, which means there's a huge margin of error if you are kind of predicting outcomes based on Trump's past, right? Huge margin of error. So the higher the trustworthiness index, the more usable the predictions are going to be, because the more likely that prediction is going to come true. But people always, you will never get 100% for a person. You can't, because you can't predict human behavior. You can't predict what experience is going to then change their mind and shape their experiences. Okay. So scan, deception, congruency, 68 out of 100, strong first person ownership and specific numbers, but hyperbole and selective framing on economy, 17 to 18 trillion. Border, 0. Military outcomes, totally obliterated. Iran capabilities, regime change occurred. 7 unendable wars ended. So action matches versus mismatches, visible momentum on executive actions, border enforcement, energy production, clear overstatements on scale and speed of success versus independent records, right? Behavioural synthesis, doubles down under pressure, attributes shortfalls to predecessors and media, strengths in disruption, blind spots in credibility erosion. So implications for Iran context: expect continued aggressive executive tariff military messaging, watch for over personalization of credit and risk of escalation without proportional results. Benjamin Netanyahu, who is 76. Core drivers: elite soldier and statesman, existential vigilance, strength as deterrent, long chess game. So scan, 75%, so direct total victory language, but overstated smashing of programs and imminent collapse. Action matches versus mismatches, tactical strikes, leadership eliminations on Iran, sites and proxies align with rhetoric. Strategic goals, full regime change, Hamas destruction, unmet, return to mowing the grass. I don't know what that means because I haven't read the latest profile. Behavioural synthesis, resilience and intelligence-driven operation strong over promising decisive ends and domestic polarisation are blind spots. So 76. So 70, we can trust predictions, 76% trust in. We can put 76% trust in the predictions, which involved Netanyahu. Implications post ceasefire stabilization likely, but renewed proxy pressure probable. Tactical gains versus strategic shortfalls and international isolation. The Ayatollah Ali Khamenei deceased. Aged 86, core drivers, ideological conviction, divine and historical duty. So I didn't realize that until I did this psychological profile, that he believed he was descended from Muhammad, right? He's linked to Muhammad's line, or that's the purported belief system. So no wonder they reacted. So Trump killed descendant of their prophet. I didn't realize. But so just bearing that in mind, Trump murdered the descendant of their prophet, and their reactions was quite muted. Preservation of revolutionary principles against Western secular threats. Scan, deception, congruency. So 76%. So consistent resistance framing, overconfidence in regime strength versus actual decapitation impact. Action matches versus mismatches, sustained cohesion and proxy support, matched rhetoric, nuclear resilience claims failed against strikes, behavioural synthesis, ideological guardian, prioritising survival, reinforced principles under pressure. So 74 out of 100. Implications post-death continuity with hardline elements expected, transition risks noted. But do you see what I mean? How on the first one we had quite a bit more information. And it's kind of, you get less and less and less if you try and do multiple ones in a time. So Mojtaba, I'm not sure how we pronounce that, Khamenei, 56 to 57. Again, they're not sure how old this guy is. Does anybody else find that really fucking weird? Anyway, core drivers, low profile, so very difficult. So to kind of increase the trustworthiness index. Security network orientated, loyalty to revolutionary order, institutional control, asymmetric leverage, so proxies, Hormuz, military, economic tools. Deception congruency, the highest, right, is 77%. Oh, it was, 77%. Formal collective hardline framing, Hormuz threats align with actions but tempered by ceasefire without full victory. Action matches versus mismatches. Well, apologies with yawning. It's lots of reading on tech with lights. Rapid succession and defiance messaging mismatch. Regime battered by external strikes shows limits. Behavioural synthesis, institutional guardian, defensive escalation under pressure, strengths in cohesion, blind spots in legitimacy. Trustworthiness index 75 out of 100. Implications, short-term asymmetric responses, long-term hardline persistence with risks of pragmatism trade-offs. So all four leaders show consistent overstatement patterns relative to verifiable outcomes. Trump and Netanyahu on scale of victories, Khamenei's on regime resilience. So trustworthiness cluster 68 to 77. Signals we must apply. Number 5, deception principle. and 21 scientific disconfirmation rigorously. Trump's transactional speed versus Netanyahu's tactical vigilance versus Motorbird's institutional continuity creates a dynamic triangle worth modeling in ACH. Limitations carried forward, so public data only, remote profiling, no access to unreported deliberations. So we've got an 80 to 84% confidence in the profiles, right? So prime to ready run the exact accept structure to any practice question. New profiles give us sharper guardrails for Iran dynamics. Post Khamenei succession, US-Israeli pressure, Hormuz proxy leverage, ceasefire durability, economic ripple. So basically, we're now primed to ask whatever we want. Possible high-value starting topics. You can choose though. Decision-making calculus, like what's going to happen. Likelihood and form of renewed escalation versus de-escalation in Hormuz, impact of leadership personalities on nuclear program recovery timetables, domestic versus external threat prioritization, Tehran versus Washington versus Tel Aviv. So what do we want to do next, peeps? I think we no, we don't need to do this. So I think run a analysis on, I think if we do this one, because I think this one will be the easiest to spot whether it's good intel or bad intel, right? So remember, we had intelligence and information doesn't fail, but the analysis does. But also bear in mind the analysis prompt and information into the analysis. It's probably between 30 and 50%, and I can't be more accurate than that because I don't know what's left in the other 120 pages of the book. So it might be like repeating things that I've already uncovered. I can't be more accurate than that. So we're still using the beginning of the prompt, right? And make likely predictions that we can we can track over the next, we'll do 2 to 4 weeks. Thanks. Because the further out you go, the less accurate any kind of predictions are going to be. And just bear in mind, we're literally limiting it to the 4 individuals. So we're not pulling in China or Russia or Starmer the Bellend. We're not pulling in any of the outsiders, right? We're just, at the moment, we're just focused on these guys. But hopefully, we're going to get like devil's advocate, and we're going to get extra hypothesis, and we're going to get the what ifs, right? That's what we're after. So 6-step analysis activated. So topic likelihood and form of renewed escalation versus de-escalation in the Gulf, Strait of Hormuz as of 20th of April 2026. So time horizon next 2 to 4 weeks through mid-May. Ooh, that's interesting because that is when we've got our elections, with specific trackable predictions, framework fidelity, so full adherence to all 29 guiding concepts, especially 24 player profiles as guardrails, the number 5 deception principle, scientific disconfirmation, number 7, 9, 10 perception and micro shift tracking, number 27 so self-bias via my anchored profile, KT rapid synthesis. So this is important because I'm pro-Trump, right? So, and anti Iran, not the Iranian people or the Persian people, but anti the IRG and the idea of a global caliphate. The rapid synthesis protocol ready and on hand, all evidence drawn from the provided around PDF, public record speeches, fact checks, plus team sourced real-time context. Right, awesome. So Operation Epic Fury, Khamenei decapitation, Iranian retaliation via Hormuz disruption, fragile ceasefire, 7th to 8th of April. I remember the ceasefire is set to finish on the 22nd. So we literally got a couple of days left. Partial reopening with ongoing US blockade and ship seizure incidents, right? So we had some recent incidents where Iran, what did I read? Iran tried to get stuff through, and what was on there was chemicals that go towards creating missiles and weapons, and that was seized. And that's the only one I saw, but there might have been others that I haven't seen, right? Because we can only see small portions of information. This is the benefit of Grok scraping the internet. So problem definition and reframing with dominant expectation audit. So core question reframed in the post-operation epic fury environment. So Iranian nuclear military sites damaged, supreme leader killed, Mohabita in rapid succession, ceasefire without full regime collapse, or nuclear elimination. What's the probability and most probable form of renewed disruption of Gulf Hormuz corridor versus genuine de-escalation? Okay, this is cool. He's going to tell us what to look out for so we can be ahead of the curve. What's actually going to prove, what can we use as pointers to prove that things are going to escalate versus what can we look for to see that de-escalation is happening? This is so cool. Focus on kinetic shipping attacks, mining, blockade, enforcement, rhetorical proxy or economic levers, and how the three profiled leaders' personalities shape outcomes. Because we got 4 profiles, but one's dead. So we can't, I mean, he's in there for context, but he's not going to be having like input. Dominant public media expectation audit per profiles and recent events. So Iran defaults to asymmetric Hormuz lever threats as a survival tool. Trump and US projects total obliteration success and will use tariffs or naval pressure for visible wins. Remember, that falls in line with Trump's quick win. That's what he is, transactional and win based. Mohabita is, and I'm going to say his name completely differently every time I say it probably, is an ideologue, right? Who grew up, by the way, he, so his dad, for context, and I personally think he's more dangerous than his dad. And this is, you need to know my bias on this. If we read into these things, I believe he's more dangerous because he grew up as a son of an ideologue, but his dad grew up when in relative peace, but just with corruption and greed, right? So his dad had more of an ideology about returning to Islamic principles and cleansing Iran from corruption. But the son grew up in civil war. So we have child soldiers, we have he fought and saw violence. So and that was pre-17, so critical periods for formation of real so if you want to kind of like go into, so if we're going to psychological, like just psychologically profile, there would be expectations of low empathy, high psychopathy, what else did I read when I was reading his profile before? He went to one of those like Madras-based schools where there's high incidence of abuse, right? So we've got the child is more likely to have been created as a war leader, right, via grooming, and that can be just psychological grooming, but also physiological violence, MK Ultra based personality creation. is potential. This is me, like, this is opinion versus fact. We've got no factual evidence to support that. We can draw opinions based on what we know about what happens in madrasas, right? And what we know about what happens with elite families. Israel, so Netanyahu maintains tactical proxy pressure. So this creates an expectation of imminent re-escalation via tanker harassment or straight closure rhetoric. My internal dominant expectation to be challenged. So short-term de-escalation surface. So partial reopening holds with low-level asymmetric flare-ups driven by Iran's battered state and all sides overstatement pattern. So edge cases to watch. So sudden domestic pressure in Tehran or Washington could flip it to kinetic escalation. So it's interesting that Grok's kind of pinpointed Tehran and Washington as the potential escalators and not Israel. So Hormuz is not binary, open or closed. It's a spectrum of control. So traffic volume, insurance rates, naval incidents, oil flow interruptions. So de-escalation here means return to pre-February 2026 baseline. So escalation means anything that spikes global oil volatility, or forces new US or Israeli responses. So key assumptions checks. Explicit assumptions tested for fragility. So ceasefire 7th to 8th of April remains technically in effect, but is fragile. So profiles note without full victory. Real-time context shows partial Hormuz reopening with the US blockade intact. Mohabita's institutional security orientated style prioritized regime continuity over suicidal full closure. Hormuz lever is leverage, not self-harm. Trump's transactional high energy style favors quick visible wins, so executive actions, investment announcements over prolonged naval quagmire. So this is really interesting to kind of like hold in the back of your mind. Trump really doesn't, based on his psychological profile that we've done, cross-reference with the scan analysis, cross-reference with like actual proof of the pudding, is he does not want a drawn out boots on the ground thing, right? That is the antithesis of what Trump's after. He is after a quick decisive win so that he can then move on to things that matter. So he wants to push back into America first, and global stabilization increases America's capacity to dominate economically, right, which enables America to benefit, right? So global stabilization is beneficial. So a long drawn out war is not beneficial in Trump's mindset. And you know, the people either, let's be honest. Netanyahu's threat-focused realism drives proxy degradation, but not unilateral Gulf escalation. So threat-focused, that was really enlightening for me, going through the profile, understanding that he grew up, due to his age, he grew up post-war with the pogroms. He grew up in the violence, and again, so him and New Calamini are probably very similar in their ideologies with regards to the way that they've doubled down on the existential threat being the other. Right. And they are living in war mode rather than peace mode. Like Trump's living in peace mode, and these two are living in war mode. So we've got three very and Islam as an ideology is even more war mode, right? So we've got like hyper war, defensive war. So we've got proactive war mode from Iran, defensive war mode, and seeing everything a threat. So Netanyahu's coming from fear, and what I know from psychology is that when you're operating in a state of fear, your capacity for logical thinking is diminished, right? So Netanyahu's just always reactionary, believing he's preempting things, but he's always working from a place of threat, right? Potentially doesn't even believe peace is possible. And then you have Trump, who is coming from a place of peace and stabilization. You know, the amount of times he's just shouted, people need to stop fucking dying. We need to stop the killing. We need to stop the war. People need to stop dying needlessly. So we'll be having a very different viewpoint. We've got all these 3 different people trying to have a conversation. So economic pain, short-term gas price rise noted in Trump's profile, oil volatility in real-time context constrains all players. No major unreported back-channel breakthroughs, public-only data per profile limitations. So challenged assumptions. What if Mohabita's March 2016 Hormuz lever must continue? Rhetoric is not just framing, but signals genuine intent despite damage. So deception score is 77, suggests partial mismatch. So what's it saying here? So Mohabita is saying and pushing, you know, we will keep fighting, we will continue to push the global caliphate, we will dominate the West, we will make them subversive, right? So that's his rhetoric. But there's a I can't do backward maths. Maybe this is what I need to write in for me, the flip side. So that's 23%. So there's a 23% wild card, if you like. So we've only got 77% congruency. So there's 23% that he might just be like, he might just be making it all up. Unpredictability. So what if Trump's April 1st address overestimates Navy gone, mask actual restraint to claim a golden age win? Sensitivity, if oil spikes over 10% or a major tanker incident occurs, assumptions shift rapidly. So gradual change can flip to sudden. Okay, so that's what we need to be on the lookout for, is a tanker incident and or oil spiking up 10%. All assumptions have been held. None have been fully disproven yet. Evidence gathering and quality assessment. So primary evidence base, high quality, multimodal. Iran PDF players are the guardrails for identically structured assessment. Trustworthiness indicates clusters 68 to 77 due to consistent overstatement pattern. So that's interesting. All 4 of them consistently overstate. And then obviously I consistently overstated. But that's fine. That's what we do. So that's something to bear in mind. They consistently overstate and don't always have the proof of the pudding. So we can take some of their confidently stated messages with a pinch of salt, potentially. Trump's April 1st Iran address shows aggressive messaging. Netanyahu post ceasefire notes renewed proxy pressure. So again, so he's defensive already, focusing on threat. Every little blip will be re-triggering Netanyahu. Like, I mean, he will have just been in constant state of threat and stress since like childhood, and has never stepped out of it. So he will be hardwired. So coming back to that spider analogy, he will be hardwired. Yeah, it'd be really hard for him to imagine a piece, to actually genuinely imagine priests, which is why everything he's done since he's been in power has been leading to the entire obliteration. He cannot fathom. This is, oh my God, this is so important. What this thing is really helpful. So he cannot fathom peace as an option while Iran exists. So he will be, unbeknownst to him sometimes, right? People give people too much credit. The subconscious mind is far more powerful than the conscious mind. So he will be making decisions in the subconscious mind. So threat avoidance, right? So his ultimate threat avoidance will be destruction of Iran. And even when he believes he's doing the opposite, he will still be bringing about that goal, because in order for him to bring about the desire that he wants, which is peace in, remember we kind of mentioned that you can't disprove your beliefs, right? What was we were saying? So I noticed that I say we a lot, and this is me, right? So I use we as the collective of us together. I've always done this fucking work. So I need to kind of examine that in myself, like dig into where does that come from. So he will be his bounded rationality, right? His mindset, his mental model of the world will be rock fucking solid if he's like in his late 70s and his entire world has been shaped by war and threat of destruction and now being in charge, like complete annihilation. And what's he seeing around the globe, right? What's he seeing around the globe is everybody, the Jews did it. Right, so every time somebody does the Jews did it, is his threat level will be going higher. Every time there is an attack on the Jews, his threat level will be going even higher. So he will be doing things, and it will lead to, without his knowledge, he will be taking action steps which he believes could be de-escalation. But when you are trapped in threat, the actual actions, or maybe things you say, things you do, the information you piece together will still end up in recreating the mental model, because that is your belief system, and you will keep recreating your inherent belief, your mental model, your mindset, whatever you want to call it, so which means the outcomes will always result in some other shitstorm, so that the final outcome, which enables him to have peace, is Iran's destruction. Real-time contextual events. Operation Epic Fury, Calamini death, Iranian missile drone retaliation, heavy Hormuz disruption, so 95% of traffic dropped, tanker attacks, 2-week ceasefire, partial reopening, 17th of April, immediate reversals, US ship seizures in Gulf of Oman, stalled Islamabad talks, elevated oil prices, aligned precisely with profiles, regime battered but defiant, asymmetric responses, ceasefire without collapse. Action-based behavioral proof from profiles, successes, Iran rapid succession. They could literally straight up, they knew who it was, right? US blockade maintenance, Israel proxy hits versus mismatches, overstated victories, unmet strategic goals. Quality assessment, public verifiable only, speeches and official records, deception congruency scores explicitly flagged, sources weighted, success failures equally, no speculation, limitations noted in PDF, remote profiling, so 80 to 84% confidence, source bias minimal, fact checks included, multimodal verbal statements, behavioral strikes, succession shipping incidents, economic oil, gas prices, increased reporting on Hormuz does not equal credibility. What a great reminder. This is why Grok's useful. Okay, so evidence is robust for short-term horizon, but thin on unreported deliberations. Okay, so we've got 6 hypotheses coming now. So hypothesis generation and ACH, so broad set and active disconfirmation. So forced broad hypothesis, so 6 generated, not just the obvious 2. So remember that, so I said that's one of the things, that's one of the safety guardrails that we must have. We must try and look at it from multiple angles, and then we're going to disprove, and we will end up with one that is most likely. So hypothesis number 1, for de-escalation, so Hormuz normalizes, blockade eases, rhetoric cools, and all sides claim victory. I don't think that one's likely, but we can't dismiss it because it's an active hypothesis until it's disproven, right? Because if we don't include it, we may miss it actually happening. Rhetorical escalation only, so threat statements intensify, no kinetic incidents. Asymmetric, number 3, asymmetric low-level escalation around lead, proxy, tanker harassment, selective mining, insurance spikes, Hormuz lever applied surgically. Hypothesis number 4, US-Israeli responsive escalation, new strikes or tariffs is provoked. Trump doubles down. Hypothesis 5, hybrid covert, surface calm with deniable proxy actions and back channel bargaining. Hypothesis 6, domestic triggered escalation, Iranian legitimacy crisis or US midterm pressures force kinetic breakout. Ooh, so there's a couple that could lead to hot war. That's what he means by kinetic breakout. ACH matrix summary, so evidence for and against disconfirmation focus. So stronger support is H3. So asymmetric low level, so Mohabita profile, defensive escalation, Hormoz lever, institutional control, and that's the one. That's the one that I think I should have guessed first. So my guess is H3, most likely. H4, Israel, not US. And then least likely is obviously that one. And I laughed when I said it, right? So let's find out where we are. So a congruent with H3. And it is because of the Mohabita profile, right? That's so using the proxies. But even doing a teeny tiny little Hamas proxy would then trigger Netanyahu and trigger. So we've got that cycle. So recent ship seizures, partial reopening, already strange, deception scores show framing over full capacity, matches Iran's historical mowing the grass pattern. So caution applied, not exact carbon copy. Okay, important. Because it's a new person, right? So he's a new person. And when I run it with just the dad, by the way, and it was de-escalation was the most likely outcome. So in killing Kalamini the dad, the unforeseen consequences is we are now with Kalamini the son, who is the more extreme. Whoopsie. Hypothesis 1 is the weakest, contradicts all 4 profiles. Okay, no, nobody's going to do this. Hardline continuity, Trump Netanyahu pressure posture disconfirmed by real-time reversals and blockade persistence. Okay, so H1 is completely potentially already gone. 2 and 5, plausible secondary if economic pain bites are ran hardest. So 2 is rhetorical escalation and 5 is hybrid covert. So surface calm and then proxy deniable proxy actions and back channel bargaining. So we're seeing a bit of this with regards to what's been going on in Pakistan. H4 and H5 edge cases, they would require triggers. So H4 is US-Israeli responsive escalation, and then 6 is domestic triggered escalation. So basically, if shit happens in Iran, that then triggers. So if you think about an Iranian coup, that could trigger escalation. Midterms, ending up with warmongers, that could cause it, or Kalamini doubling down even. They say they would require a trigger, actively disconfirmed, so no evidence of imminent foreclosure, but it would devastate Iranian oil revenue too, right? Okay, so there we go. Most likely weighted H3 at 65% probability, H2 and 5 combined 25%, H1 less than 5%, and H4 and 6 so 5% each. Calibrated disruption, tanker incidents, rhetoric selective incident rather than straight closure. Number 5, bias and sensitivity check. So devil's advocate and full concept sweep, right? So devil's advocate explicit. So what if Iran is more pragmatic post decapitation and Mohabita chooses survival over confrontation, right? So why is that devil advocate? Because that is the complete 180 of what his psychological profile and his previous actions have proven. But what if that 23% of unpredictability, or that's the untrustworthiness based on like previous actions and stuff, what if that 23% is the real him, right? So what if it's just going to flip? So the current profile, hardline persistent legitimacy, blind start, real-time ship seizures weaken this. However, economic self-interest could force restraint. So he's done a data-driven track as per number 28. So key concept suite with no skipping. So 7, 8, and 10, which is all about perception and context. So Hormuz threats are expected and easily assimilated. Micro shifts, traffic volume, insurance rates could be missed without snapback to pre-February baseline. Number 9, gradual evolutionary change. So watch the Overton window on acceptable incidents. Okay, so if we have little skirmishes, did they have less? Do the little skirmishes become just the norm? Because if they then become the norm, they can no longer be used to predict escalation. Because so watching to see if and then we have to look backwards to see the dramatic change, right? In order to actually, so you have to keep looking, you have to pick a starting point and be like, okay, but what's changed since then, not what's changed since last week. 11.26. So this is opinions on fragments versus and too much info risk, anchored to PDF evidence only. Okay, so it is I created the psychological profile, co-created it with Grok. We have no access to actual intelligence other than publicly. I mean, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, right? Either. 21, scientific disconfirmation. So tried hard to disprove. Okay, so Grok's telling us he tried to disprove for H3, but the evidence still supports that's the one that's most likely, right? And tried to disprove all of them, which is how we ended up with the rating scale. 22-25, category and historical caution, not treating Iran as monolithic and always escalate. So that's important. 27, self-bias check. So no pushback from you yet. That's funny. My analysis avoids conceptualist bias by staying data-led. Belief resist change flagged on Iran, always uses Hormuz, countered with economic nuance. So KT rapid synthesis protocol, no flash insight triggered, all reasoning explicit and incremental. If oil goes to £110 a barrel or there's a major civilian tanker loss, H4 rises sharply. Edge cases, sudden Mohabita legitimacy crisis. Yeah, so extra process, right? Forces escalation cohesion. So level hypothesis 4 was US-Israeli responsive escalation. So strikes and tariffs and Trump doubling down. Okay. So since this is implications and lessons, so watch points, confidence, and debrief. So likelihood of renewed escalation outweighs genuine de-escalation 70 to 75%. Okay, so there we go. That's what's on the cards, peeps. Some form of disruption versus 25 to 30% calm normalization. Most probable form is asymmetric low level, H3, selective tanker harassments, rhetorical Hormuz threats, proxy probes, insurance shipping cost spikes, calibrated to pressure without triggering a full US-Israeli retaliation. All leaders overestimate patterns, suggest public claims will exceed actual results, creating credibility gaps that could be exploited or misread. Oh, that's important. Strategic implications, so short-term 2 to 4 weeks. Economic ripple, oil volatility affects global markets, risk to energy security, potential for miscalculation if incidents escalate. Broader reinforces profiles, core drivers, Trump's speed, visibility, Netanyahu vigilance, and Mohabita institutional survival. Could test alliance strain or domestic fatigue if claims diverge further from outcomes. Nuances or related considerations. Hormuz disruption is Iran's cheapest lever, but carries self-harm, so revenue loss. Trump's transactional style may pivot to deal rhetoric if visible wins materialize. Netanyahu may use incidents to justify further proxy action, right? So he will. That will be his that's his natural, that's his stress-based state, and he's just in stress, right? Trackable predictions, right? So here we go. Next 2 to 4 weeks, monitor these exact markers. Rhetorical, Mohabita or IRGC statements referencing Hormuz lever or resistance, increase in frequency or intensity by the 30th of April and track via official channels. Kinetic 2 to 4 new reported incidents of Iran vessels, tankers harassed or seized in Gulf of Oman or Hormuz by 10th of May. Insurance rates as proxy metrics. Economic Brent crude volatility up 8%, sustained. Any Trump claim of okay. So if Trump claims blockade successes, we need to pair that with new investment announcements. De-escalation signals. Any easing of US naval presence or partial blockade lift by mid-May would support H1, H5, right? So there are de-escalation hypothesis. Edge trigger, single major tanker attack or Israeli strike on proxy. Probability of H4 jumps to 40%. Wow. And remember, H3 is only at 63%, which is the most likely. So that single event makes hot war like more likely. That's crazy. So watch points, daily shipping traffic data through Hormuz, oil price futures, any new Trump, Netanyahu, Mohabita speeches. So overall confidence, 78%, strong profile alignment and real-time context, reduced slightly for unreported deliberations, which is fair enough. This run demonstrated clean integration of PDF profiles, guardrails, real-time events without vacuum analysis, no rapid synthesis trigger, reasoning stayed deliberate, excellent multi-angle coverage of player psychology, deception risk and spectrum, not binary nature of Hormuz dynamics. Okay. So what I will try and do from this one is figure out how those things that Grok has said to track, figure out whether it can be done like automatically. So I know you can create and get AI to run things like every so often. And I do that with Sintra AI running certain stuff in the background to find out what's trending in psychology world. I also have RSS feeds, which is non-AI based on news feeds. So if you're on my Telegram group, the kind of like key politics stuff that runs that's kind of dumped from the mainstream media, so we know what they're doing. That's an RSS feed, so that's automatically pulled. So I could potentially make an RSS feed to track it, and then I wonder whether I can integrate the RSS feed into Grok to run and update daily. That'd be interesting. So I haven't done that yet, right? This could be, let me write that down as a potential next step, right? Because there's no point having this if you have to keep plugging into it. Like what you want to be able to do is allow it to kind of keep pulling information in the background so that you can then have the most up-to-date analysis. So we want to go agentic rather than just modeling. And RSS feeds, the question mark, daily, what did I say? Daily trigger, daily run of percentage changes and significant changes. Well, that's okay. That'll see, done. Oh, I don't think you can see that because of the light, but there we go. On a sticky. But I'll just ask Grok to tell me how to do it. So I hope you enjoyed that, right? I mean, I learned some cool new stuff. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go into a new, I need to get this prompt back. There we go. I'll just grab it from here. So what you would then want to do is you would then want to have a conversation, right? You would want to ask XYZ. You'd want to be okay. Well, what about this? You know, on the other one, when I was kind of like testing it before refining the prompt, I was like, okay, but what if we throw Xi in, Putin, you know, Starmer's rhetoric, what changes with the EU, how they're positioning themselves. And actually, just FYI, when you plug all of them in, de-escalation becomes more likely. But because of just the sheer number of moving parts. So maintaining the status quo is most likely, unless there's the triggers, right? Which is kind of what we've seen here anyway, just using those psychological profiles as the guide with what's going on. Right, new chat. Let's go again. Then we want to go here, upload file. So this is Angela Rayner, Keir Starmer, and Andy Burnham. And I haven't run this at all. So this is like first time run through. I'm just going to nip to the loo while it thinks. So give me 2 secs. Okay, I'm back. So I did go and grab a blanket as well because I've been freezing. It's got really, really cold now as the oh shoot, I should have gone after doing this bit, shouldn't I? It's fine. The window's been open because it was hot today, so I couldn't figure out why it's been so freaking cold in here. Right, so the same as normal. Then we're going to go quick structured extraction. So this is a quick run through of the profiles. So Keir Starmer, biopsychosocial methodical, duty-orientated prosecutor mindset shaped by working class resilience, family caregiving values, institutions, incremental fairness, and steady renewal. 72% deception stroke congruency, measured collective language, but passive constructions and external attribution on U-turns, Mandelson vetting, creating reactive framing. Behavioural proof insights, so incremental delivery successes, so NHS GP recruitment, housing push, defence spending versus 13 to 16 documented U-turns in less than 19 months. Wow. Mandelson vetting timeline mismatches, assurance of full due process versus later unforgivable ignorance admission. Unity rhetoric versus heightened internal-external splits. So pragmatic adaptability is a strength for survival, but risks eroding the steady hand image, short-term credibility repair needed on transparency. So 74%. So we can trust Keir Starmer to do what he says he's going to. 70% 74% confidence he's going to do it, right? Andy Burnham, biopsychosocial, pragmatic place-based king of the north, identity rooted in regional post-industrial loyalty and visible delivery focus. 79% congruency, confidence specific on infrastructure, more defensive on legacy issues. Behavioural proof insights, highlights. Strong matches on B network, reindustrialization, devolution wins versus persistent mismatches on grooming gangs, historical accountability, Oldham, Rochdale, Manchester reviews, victim concerns, limited national inquiry stance, broader performance critics on crime, homelessness, clean air zone, right? So he says what he's going to do, but he just ignores and refuses, and he's just shit at his job, right? So synthesis and implications, tangible local wins coexist with vulnerability to legacy scrutiny, national spotlight amplifies defensiveness. Here we go. So 81% we can trust that he's going to do what he's saying he's going to do, regardless of whether people want it, right? This is where it becomes, hey, Pen. This is where it becomes important. Highly reliable on northern regeneration, transport devolution, watch closely on child protection accountability. Angela Rayner, so because remember, we pulled her out. She's the one they're pushing. And her and him have been kind of like nattering, doing deals. Angela Rayner, so biopsychosocial core, high resilience, emotionally grounded, working class warrior, forged by council estate hardship, high early caregiving burdens, union organizing, prizes authenticity and bold collective action. Deception congruency 78%, blunt, personal, emotionally authentic on systematic issues, some defensive attribution on personal conduct, behavioural proof highlights strong legislative matches, so renters' rights bill, employment's right bill, developer crackdowns versus clear mismatch on September 2025 ministerial code, breach, resignation, stamp duty under pavement on Hove flat while housing secretary, failure to seek specialist advice despite recommendations. So synthesis and implications, passionate base, energizing voice for working class interests, personal standards, lapse creates irony with her authenticity narrative and risks polarizing dynamics. Trustworthiness index 78%, reliable champion for renters, workers' rights and bold reform, watch on personal compliance with rules and balancing criticism with unity. So public only sources, equal weighting of confirming versus disconfirming evidence, no private info rumors. So confidence 83 to 86%. Oh, wow. Team input integration. Harper, Benjamin, and Lucas all reviewed the document in parallel. Quick external cross-checks on key claims. Mandelson vetting failure, April 26. Admission. Starmer U-turn, volume. Rayner stamp duty. Resignation and ethics advisor findings. Burnham, grooming inquiry tensions align with public reporting. So there's no major discrepancies found in the profile. So that's good to know, right? Strength of this material explicitly separates rhetoric from action, and said very Heuer-like, quantifies congruence and flags reactive pragmatism versus perceived indecision, useful for avoiding number 7, which is ignoring disconfirming evidence, and 21, so scientific disconfirmation. Potential blind spots, all 3 profiles note reactive framing or defensive attribution under pressure. Okay, that's useful. In a high-stakes environment, this could manifest as incremental policy erosion or inter-party fractures, a sustained backlash amplifying credibility loss. And this is what we see, right? So all 3 have the same reactive framing and defensive attribution. Interesting. Cross-player dynamics, Starmer's institutional caution and Burnham's regional loyalty and Rayner's bold working-class voice create natural tension vectors inside Labour. So establishment drift, critiques versus governing pragmatism, relevance to our framework. These profiles are excellent test material, right? Because it's still in test mode. For the ACH, the hypothesis generation, 22 category caution, so steady versus flip-flopping, 27 self-bias checks. That's me. Because it's important that we have I am not a fan of these three. I am not a fan of their ideologies. So that will be key, right? And if I was doing, if I was doing Farage, or I mean, I don't like any of them. So to be honest, I don't like any of them. I like Trump because he's he pretty much does what he says. And he doesn't write. He delivers his own speeches. So that's important to put out there compared to all of the other politicians, is Trump doesn't use a script writer. Somebody writes his scripts and then he has conversations with people. So his congruency level should probably be higher because it's not written by somebody else. It's not passed through a generative AI. So bear that in mind when you are doing these things as well. Where do we go from here? So I want to run the 6-step analysis on what's going to happen after the elections, right? What will happen after the May elections in the UK? How will the power dynamics shift inside the Labour Party? Will we see Starmer resign? So I personally believe Starmer will resign, but they're waiting until after the elections, and Rayner will be the one they put forward, right? I could be completely wrong, but that's what I kind of see potentially happening. Resign and Rayner take his place. Then Burnham move from mayor, because remember he was blocked, back into MP sphere with propensity to become the deputy. Please ensure that you are not just using my hypothesis, the previous bit, and are running the full analysis. Thanks. Let's go. Okay, here we go. And then once we've done this, we'll call it a night. Right. Okay. So, problem definition and reframing with dominant expectation audit, right? So following the 7th of May, 2026 local council elections in 136 English authorities, so 5,000 seats up for grabs, Scottish Parliament and Senate votes. How will internal Labour power dynamics shift? Will Keir Starmer face resignation or level pressure? Will Angela Rayner emerge as leader? Will Andy Burnham return from the mayoralty to Westminster and assume a deputy leader role? Dominant public media expectation audit, so pre-analysis baseline. Heavy Labour losses are the near consensus forecasts. Projected net loss, 1,900 to 2,000 seats. Control lost in multiple northern metropolitan areas. Reform UK and Greens as main beneficiaries. So I would like to caveat the whole green thing. Greens will be in pockets because polling takes a little bit of information and extrapolates it across the entire population, but they will be ignoring. So there's a 17% vote share for the Greens, the projected vote share, but that does not factor in locality. There'll be mass Birmingham gains, mass Manchester gains, mass gains in areas with high pockets of bloc sectarian voting, but the rest of the seats won't be. So it might be, it's not 17%. It will be a lot higher in some areas and a lot lower in other areas, right? That's my 10 cents thrown in there. So be careful. This will intensify existing pressure on Starmer, Mandelson vetting scandal, U-turn, minus 20 polling, minus 47 approval. Calls for resignation already exist, but have not coalesced into a formal challenge. Raymer and Burnham are the two names most frequently floated as successes and alternatives, with the recent reporting of a private meeting between them. Yeah. Reframe problem to avoid narrow hypothesis testing. What range of plausible post-election internal reconfiguration is consistent with the evidence player, psychological profiles, and structural constraints of the Labour Party? This forces us to examine timing barriers and multiplayer interactions rather than assuming a clean Starmer, Rayner, Burnham deputy sequence. Awesome. Assumption check. May elections will be electorally disastrous for Labour. High confidence, evidence, consistent polling by election trends and independent projections across left or right sources. Second assumption, Starmer's Mandelson handling remains a live vulnerability, high confidence, ongoing parliamentary scrutiny that happened today, and he was forced to admit that he's just blamed the Foreign Office, hasn't he? So ongoing parliamentary scrutiny, senior official resignation, cross-party calls. Third assumption, Rayner harbours leadership ambitions, high confidence. Her March 2026 speech, private polling, fundraising reports, and explicit I will be ready signals. Fourth, Birmingham wants to return to Westminster, high confidence, public statements, NEC booking, episode in Gorton and Denton by-election, and ally briefings. Fifth assumption, Labour has rapid low friction leadership change mechanism. So low confidence, a major constraint. So there is no automatic confidence votes. Requires 80 MP nominations, historical reluctance for regicide midterm. Oh, well, that's interesting. Rain is 25, tax resignation issue is fully resolved. So medium confidence. At the moment, it's a lingering risk. So still references a barrier by multiple outlets. So concept 2, fact versus fiction, and concept 11, opinions on fragments applied. The Rayner Burnham plot narrative is currently opinion heavy. We're weighing verifiable action. So speech, meeting, NEC vote more heavily. Thank you very much, Grok. Number 3, evidence gathering and quality assessment. So multimodal sources by multimodal sources, I have asked for not just media, but like evidence. So it would be like government documentation, factual evidence, but including not just text and video and imagery and first-hand witness statements, rather than just relying on, what's the media saying, because that's where AI will automatically pull their information. because that will be reported the most, and that will be the highest on the algorithms in the search engines. So polling projections, electoral calculus, poll check, election sect, Britain.vote all converge on Labour collapse to 18 to 20% of vote share. News archives 25-26, Reuters, Al Jazeera, Guardian, Telegraph. Oh look, he's gone from all the different sides. Financial Times consistent on Mandelson fallout, Rayner speech, Burnham blocking and secret meeting. Player statements and behaviour, so PDF profiles and recent quotes align with their actions. X sentiment, so concept 23, increased reporting does not equal credibility, remember? Recent posts show speculation but no coordinated plot, so noise level is high. Interesting. Source bias checked, left-leaning outlets, Guardian emphasised policy critique, right-leaning, amplify leadership drama, cross-checked across spectrum, so core facts hold. Public only limitation, we don't have access to the private WhatsApp group or a PLP minutes. Analysis cannot access unreported deliberations. So we are limited. Quality weighting high for verifiable events, election state resignation, blocking vote speech, medium for intent inferences. Awesome. Hypothesis generation and ARC, ACH, forced broad set plus active disconfirmation. So here we go. These are the broad hypotheses generated. Hypothesis 1, status quo survival, a most likely baseline. So Starmer weathers the immediate storm via pragmatism and cabinet loyalty, minor reshuffle or policy tweaks, no leadership contest before autumn. H2, which is my hypothesis, so rapid succession, catastrophic losses, Starmer resigns within weeks, Rayner elected leader, Burnham returns as MP and deputy. Hypothesis 3, prolonged instability. So losses trigger months of infighting, multiple challenges, Rayner, Burnham streeting others. Streeting, he's a wild card. No clear winner, party fragments even further. Hypothesis 4, Rayner challenge fails. Rayner launches, but tax standards and baggage and insufficient MP nominations sink her. Another centrist, for example, streeting emerges. Ooh, wild card. Hypothesis 5, Burnham-centric regional realignment. So Burnham secures Westminster seat post-May via NEC shake-up or by-election, becomes de facto kingmaker or shadow deputy without immediate leadership run. Interesting. So ACH confirmation matrix. So we're trying to disprove them. So we can disconfirm H2. Rayner's tax investigation remains unresolved. Oh, so my one, which is a nomination barrier. So she's currently blocked. I mean, that's as of today. So we're not there yet. At the moment, as of today, H2 can't go ahead. Burnham's still not an MP, so we can't stand. Labour history shows reluctance for immediate regicide. So Anwar Sarwar's earlier call went absolutely nowhere. PDF profile shows Starmer's methodical institutional style and Rayner's own defensive attribution. On personal conduct, both reduce speed of transition, strong disconfirming evidence. Okay, so what will have factored in my hypothesis is my own bias with regards to the way that I function is act first, think second, right? I want immediate resolutions and we'll figure shit out afterwards. What I forgot to factor in is the psychological profile. These are not actors. They are okay, so what I mean by they're not people who take action. They are people who posture and pomp, right? So posture and pomp, so status quo maintaining, because you see each other, you see everybody through your own lens, right? When you get bogged down. Disconfirm H1. So Mandelson round projected seat losses worst in modern cycle, exceed previous survival thresholds. Rayner Burnham meeting and public signals indicate organised alternative voices. Partial disconfirmed. Survival possible but damaged. So 3, 4, and 5 remain viable, none fully disproven yet. However, concept 5, deception not rejected until disproven. So we have to remember rain is tied into the unions. So that's all public service, right? Where are we? Okay, so no evidence of deliberate internal leaks designed to force outcomes yet. Speculation appears organic and media amplified. Excuse me. So bias and sensitivity check. So devil's advocate, here we go. Even if losses are as bad as forecast, Starmer's prosecutor mindset may frame it as inherited challenges. Oh, I forgot the whole fucking 10 years or 15 years, whatever it is, 10 years of Tory cuts. We are rebuilding. We've had to deal with Iran. We've had to, it's everybody else's fault. And we see him doing this a lot with Mandelson. I didn't know. Well, how did he not know when like it was being fucking reported in the media? It was like, I knew like 2 years ago. In my FOI fucking request. I reported it in 2021, Mandelson and Epstein ties and Epstein landing on the fucking RAF bases. So I don't have any access to intelligence. So they're still leaning on that I didn't know, somebody else's fault, complete ignorance of how people he must either be I don't understand how. Like I need to, maybe we can ask this as a follow-up. Like, how can he be so ignorant of the fact that the entire country fucking hates him? Like, and still show up and think he's the hero. And what? Like, he's got some serious fucking self-esteem there, hasn't he? Other people would be on the floor like bumbling idiots and like rocking backwards and forwards, like complete mess. He's just so like, I'm still the fucking hero. Okay, so he's going to frame it as inherited challenges and buy time with incremental targets. Rayner's authenticity PDF is powerful, but a 2025 resignation creates a mirror image standards attack line that opponents will weaponize. Burnham's regional strength does not automatically translate to Westminster arithmetic. Oh, Grok's pushed back. Okay, darn it. Okay, but this is the point. Like we're in a forced stop, but that's okay, because we're just going to read what we've got up to so far. But yeah, so Grok won't move forward until I answer these 3 questions, right? So this is what I so we're now in a forced stop because I just blurted out information, right, and didn't provide evidence, so which is fine, because I can use my knowledge, my understanding. So as an example, on the previous forced stop, when I was testing before the upgrade, it was I kind of mentioned that I believe Calla, meaning the younger, was more dangerous. And Grok was like, well, where did you get that information from? Because it's like not stated anywhere. How have you come to that conclusion? And I was able to say, age 17, grew up like seeing violence, ideologue, second son, proving himself. Like, so I was able to kind of give all the background based information. So just as a reminder, the 4 stops in there to catch my rapid long-term memory retrieval that appears, that synthesized retrieval without the kind of linear following through, right? So it's designed to force me to track back where the information came from. so that we can cross-reference it against opinion versus fact. So when you create your own, you may not need this, right? So having to ask, where did it come from? Pattern matching recent reports against both players, documented styles. So why did I put that in there? Evidence supporting both have criticized direction without direct leadership bids. Burnham cannot run yet. Contradicting, public speculation of pot is strong, inside retained as plausible but unproven, so weighted accordingly. Okay, cool. And run the self-bias check. So your hypothesis aligns with the preference for working class authenticity and northern delivery focus over Starmer's institutional caution. No evidence this is distorting the analysis. Oh, this is interesting. I'd be like, I actually fucking hate them both, all three of them. We actively generated competing hypotheses and sought disconfirming data, belief resistance check. If new evidence showed Starmer stabilizing post-May, would we accept it? Yes, it's already baked in. That's cool. So sensitivity analysis. So if lose is milder than forecast, H1 strengthens, which is status quo survival. If Mandelson files release implication Starmer directly, hypothesis 2 and 3 accelerate, and 3 is my one. So 2 is my one, is a rapid succession, and H3 is prolonged instability. So both of those rise. Edge case, concept 9 guardrail change. So incremental policy shifts pre-May could blunt backlash, but contradict steady renewal. So snap back to 2004, baseline Starmer's landslide rather than incremental 2025 U-turns to avoid assimilation bias. Super. So synthesis, implication, and lesson. So most probable post-May trajectory. So 70 to 75% confidence. Labour suffers historic local losses, 1,500 to 2,000 seats. Starmer faces intensifies but not immediately fatal pressure, unlikely to resign voluntarily in the first 2 to 4 weeks, institutional resilience and no formal trigger. Rayner and Burnham will be elevated as the authentic regional alternative. So access with the secret meeting now public knowledge, fueling speculation. However, structural barriers. So they literally, so the thing that's stopping it is the fact that it can't happen. So Rayner's unresolved tax issues is blocking her, and then Burnham is not an MP. So both of those things are improbable in the short term as they stand today. Likely power shift pattern. So short term May to July, heightened PLP NEC tension, possible minor reshuffle, Starmer staying the course rhetoric. Burnham allies push for NEC changes to ease his path. Medium term, autumn 2026, if polling does not recover, a formal challenge becomes viable. So I was just too rapid in my predictions. Rayner most likely to test the waters, but may need to clear personal baggage first. Burnham positioned as deputy, kingmaker, or future leader if he secures a seat. No clean Starmer out Rayner in Burnham deputy handover in the immediate post-election window. More likely messy realignment towards left-leaning regionally ground voices. Implications. So the part of further left regional pressure on policy, immigration, housing, devolution, but risks of deeper splits. So concept 22, category caution, avoid rigid establishment versus warrior framing. Governance, reactive governance pattern could intensify, eroding delivery credibility. Opposition, reform, Greens gain momentum, Conservatives may stabilise. Edge cases, full national grooming inquiry escalation, Burnham profile, or new Rayner tax revelation could derail both alternatives. So actionable watch points. 8 to 10th of May, PLP or group meetings, and any Rayner or Burnham public statements, NEC composition post-May and Burnham selection prospects, polling rebound or lack thereof by June, or any Mandelson file releases. Lessons for future analysis, strong demonstration of concepts 22, 20 broad, so we've got broad So we've got disconfirming, broad hypothesis, self-bias, player profiles prove highly predictive of framing styles, with Starmer's external attribution, Rayner's blunt ownership with defensive elements, public-only sources limited certainty, but still yield robust probabilistic picture. Okay, so we've got a 68% confidence, which is high on electoral outcome and player motivations. Oh, that's quite good. Medium on exact timing or sequences due to closed door dynamics. Ready for rerun with post-election data or deep dive on any sub-hypotheses. Awesome. So how do I stop? There we go. Awesome. So I hope you enjoyed that. So basically, what we got Grok to do in how long did it take him to do that last run, right? Do you see that? 283 sources to do that run. And it was done in 27 seconds. So in order for me to do that, I mean, days. I mean, I normally start I collect evidence for the podcast on so after today, right? Then I start collecting the next day, trying to kind of see what things we probably important to talk about. I try to find something we haven't just talked about, because we tend to talk about things in advance, because we see what's coming up rather than hello, we're talking about it today. So I try to find news things that other people aren't talking about, because that's a better indicator of where things are going. So usually kind of like I'm mining information and pulling in from lots of different sources, listening and watching podcasts to see if I can get any extra information about stuff that perhaps I don't know, maybe reading books if I need to. And then usually do so Saturday and Sunday tends to be like I start kind of integrating things, and I've usually figured out what it is I want to speak about Saturday, Sunday, and then spend Monday like collating the information, and stress testing and hypothesis testing, and getting Grok to push back based on go by XYZ, with that main ABC. So all of that is like a super collaborative process, and Grok just did it in 27 seconds. Hey Jean, welcome. So I hope that was enjoyable. I hope you enjoyed that, right? So this is and I do urge caution with AI, right? So I would never leave it to to Grok, right? To just figure it out, because he hallucinates, and those. It has to be a collaborative process, but you have to take into account his hallucinations, or any AI, right? But you have to take into account your biases, and only when you're working together can you kind of catch it. But I hope you enjoyed how powerful an AI can be. I'm very excited to finish the book and maybe and to create a beginning prompt. So the beginning prompt will include things that you will need to disclose. You won't be able to just plug it in and run, because then it will be ineffective, right? It's about making effective tools that we can use, because at the moment we're at a massive disadvantage to obviously the intelligence community, and we still will be, because we're only using publicly verifiable information. However, it should stop us from being sideswiped when shit happens that we didn't realize was coming. Yeah. So that's what I've spent my entire today building and doing. I had fun. So I hope you had fun. So I mean, the plan will be that next week, I mean, it depends. It depends how it 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, so give me time to actually stress test stuff. And we'll test the predictions, right? So what we'll do is we will use it to run a prediction. And give it 2 to 4 week timescales. We will feed stuff back in. We'll make sure it's kind of stress tested, and then get you guys a generic prompt so that you can just start like plugging stuff in. Like how awesome would like just I am again, like I do stuff and get very excited very quickly. Okay, so I'm like thinking, oh my god, this is gonna be amazing. We'll be like, okay, but we'll just have fun with it. Like that's the plan. But I do need to stress test the personality one a bit more as well. Because what it was supposed to do with mine was ask for unedited transcript, and that prompt didn't come up, so we need that in there. It was different. We don't need it for the public profiles because it does scrape them, but it needs to ask that for you because you need to be able to plug your personality, your not personality, my apologies, your profile and your biases and stuff needs to be plugged in. So it needs to be I already knew what I needed to plug into the other one in order to just make it like way more accurate. So which is where I got to the 92% trustworthiness, which is based on what she says she kind of does, because there was that much. And we need to make sure your trustworthiness comes out at above 90%. Because otherwise it'll never catch your biases correctly, which will skew your output. This is all about, so again, back to that quote, right? Information and intelligence doesn't fail, analysis fails. So there's never anything wrong with intelligence. There's something wrong with the analyst. Awesome. So thank you so much for joining me. I have really enjoyed myself. I genuinely hope you found it useful. Do keep an eye on the predictions that we made. I will be kind of giving little updates. So I'll be back next week. Got no idea what we'll talk about next week. I haven't started looking yet. If you find something that you've kind of like spotted that you're like, this is interesting, nobody's really talking about this, do send it me, because like I'm not grok. I can't read almost 250 sources in the space of 27 seconds at all. And to be fair, I've got I only just caught up on about 1,200 Telegram notifications, like in the last 24, 48 hours. So, and I'm still like about 2,000 behind on like important channels that do give good information. So, do feel free to feed me stuff. Like I love it. No, like I love it being a collaborative process. So thank you so much. I'm going to go get some dinner. I was busy building AI. I forgot to feed myself. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a fantastic week, and I shall see you next week. Lots of love. Bye for now.